Hey, greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the sixth season of Timeless Gamer, where the games and gamers grow older, while the gaming experiences will forever remain timeless. Your gaming podcast show brought to you by Pinoy Retro Gaming, and we are now streaming live in our Facebook page, YouTube channel, and Twitch channel for all of our archive videos of our previous shows. You can still check them out by going to the YouTube channel of Timeless Gamer. So that's Timeless Gamer PRG. And you can also listen to us in Audible, Amazon Music, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Samsung Podcast, Podcast Index, Listen Notes, Pandora, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and Deezer by searching in Timeless Gamer on your favorite searching engines. And previously on Timeless Gamer, we were able to discuss the history or some notable pro wrestling video games from the late 80s all the way to the PlayStation 2 era. So if you are into pro wrestling games, you can just go to our go to our archive shows on our YouTube channel just to check that out. And it's a different cast of it's a different cast for tonight, ladies and gentlemen, because tomorrow PRG will be having another podcast talking about the a couple of pro Tekken players actually, and so they're going to have our usual time slot. That's why we move our time slot today, this Saturday. And for this evening, we have Sir Dan to thank to come up with the topic. It's called alternative JRPGs. No, hang on,
RPGs.
alternate RPGs, not necessarily JRPGs. Alternative RPGs. I keep saying alternate. So, Sir Dan, what does this topic mean? Just for clarification.
Yeah, so basically, we're going to look at games which don't get as much limelight, or RPGs which don't get as much limelight. We're all used to the Final Fantasies, Mass Effects, and big names of the RPG world, but there's a hell of a lot of great games out there that don't get any exposure. So, or get some exposure, but nowhere near enough. So, we're going to look at those today.
All right, thank you for that, Sir Dan. And for this evening, guys, for the rest of the Timeless Gamer crew, they're not really big RPG players aside from me and Sir Dan. Sir Joel, unfortunately, cannot be here, so he's stomping his feet somewhere in New Jersey right now. Cannot be here, but we will have Sir Joel maybe on a later date. I mean, this is not the only RPG episode that we're going to do. It's been a long time since we did an RPG centric episode. The last time that we did was when we did the top 10 PlayStation 2 RPGs, and that was like a year, like over like 2 years ago already. So for this particular episode, guys, we have Sir Dan, of course, and we've also had some help with Sir Drew here. Gig Out Gaijin representing JRPG Philippines. Sir Drew, say hi to the gang down there at the chat. Oh,
Oh, we lost. Is it sound or?
it. Yeah, he fixed his sound. Now we can't hear anything.
Oh,
Nothing.
just toggle your mic a bit, mate.
Well, Sir Drew is fixing up his mic. Look who's back, guys. Sir Viraj.
Oh, glad to be back. Thanks for having me on again at last minute, but I was glad that I made it, so it's good. Okay.
Well, when I was trying to look for people to do this episode, Sir Viraj is like, "Oh, I can't be there. I'm at work." Okay, such a shame. And then earlier he said, "What time are you guys starting? What time are you guys starting? So I can. I'm about to go. I'm about to go home. I'm about to join you guys." And I'm saying, "Oh no, we're still waiting for Sir Dan." Okay, so I sent him the link, and now he's here.
Thanks for having me. I did want to come, and then fortunately they let me go home early. And yeah, okay, wonderful. I'll get to join you guys, and we can geek out about some of the most obscure RPGs that are unsung heroes of the past. So looking
That's a
forward
great.
to it.
I should have titled it that, mate. That's a better title.
Sorry, never mind.
Never
It is what
mind.
it is. I've said it now, so it's there. It's on record. All right.
I mean, to be quite honest, when Sir Dan suggested the topic and he listed down a few examples, I was still having some trouble of thinking a few games in mind to
Mm,
come up with, and
mm.
I searched my collection,
Yeah.
and I haven't. I mean, I talk a big game. Like I talk a lot, knowing that I'm this RPG enthusiast. But truth to be told,
Oh,
guys, I mean, looking at my collection, I only played a few. Oh, here's some Sir Drew. Yeah, Sir Drew, geek out gaijin based in Japan.
Yep.
Sir Drew, say hi.
hey, thank you guys for having me. Sorry, I was fine with my audio and my video earlier, but suddenly after the intro, everything was like I could see everyone, but there was no sound coming from the phone, so I had to do some technical troubleshooting, and I had to just leave and re-enter. But anyway, thank you for having me, Joe, and the moment you said alternate RPGs, I was like, I'm in 100%. I have been playing RPGs since I discovered Final Fantasy Tactics, but I know that's a little bit late in terms of playing JRPGs on my age.
Mm.
But before that, I was all about fighting games. I was all about platformers and all that. All those 90s arcade sweet gaming experience because since we Filipinos did not really have that much when in terms of owning our own system, so I was a little bit late to the JRPG scene. But hey, here we are.
Yeah, here we are. Um, so like I was saying earlier, so I only played a few. I only played a few, and I only finished a few. But this was during the PlayStation One era. For the PlayStation One era, there were a lot of RPGs that were released, and that was my jam. And then when the PlayStation hit, I was already in high school. So and then transitioning into college, so I had less time to play. And then more games for the PlayStation 3 came out, and even more for the PlayStation 4 that were released. And as time went on, I had little time, even lesser time
Definitely,
to play.
definitely.
Right? It's part of growing up, guys.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I said to myself, okay, I'll I don't want to talk about games that I haven't even played. So with the bare minimum that I have in my with the bare minimum that I had, looking at my collection, okay, I handpicked a few, and I based my selections per category. So I will explain those later when it's my turn. But let's we will proceed with we will proceed with the show so that Sir Viraj can still have a few time to prepare, a few minutes to prepare for his list. Do you
I
already
know my
have your
list.
list, or do you have it in mind?
It's there. I
Do you
know.
already have it in mind?
I have a list of games. I've a lot of art. I mean, for me, just to fill it in, very similar to uh, very similar to what's been said earlier, which is I started RPG gaming towards the late 90s, 2000s. So all the stuff that came out on the 16-bit era, I missed out on. But the beauty of retro gaming is, due to the miracle of emulation, you can always revisit the past, and you can always listen to what other people say about what was a good RPG. And during that period of 2002, yes, there obviously is the main consoles and there's RPGs on that, but I might have a different perspective than from you gentlemen because the Game Boy Advance, I had a lot of GBA RPGs, and that's actually, I could say there's some unsung heroes on that machine, which none of you have probably heard of because I'm making a huge assumption here. I'm sure you guys had a Game Boy Advance, or you might have played Game Boy Advance games, but most people played the main console RPGs, whereas the handheld RPGs, that's a different. That basically the Game Boy Advance for me was basically the 16-bit era part two, and there's a lot
Mhm.
that was put on that machine, and
They were a
um,
lot,
there were a
actually.
lot on there.
A
There were a lot
lot
of
and quite
games on that.
So
expensive,
much,
actually.
so
Mm.
much.
But I can talk about what I experienced, and it's great because this is we talked about unsung heroes. There's quite a few on the advance and some other platforms which I can mention, but we'll get to that. But I can talk about the most obscure RPGs. I'm actually playing one right now on the Game Boy Advance called Sigma Star Saga. But we could talk about
Okay,
that later. I don't want to. I don't want to
Sounds
sort
like
of.
a
I've never
combination of a
heard of
lot
that
of
one.
RPGs just by the title alone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
I've
But,
never heard of that one.
well, I'll
Like
elaborate later on because I don't want to sort of unless you want me to continue.
like Tales of Final Saga
Yeah, there's so
Yeah,
many
story.
games with
Tales
there's so,
of Final Saga Fantasy.
there's so many very abstract titles to these games, but they fill you with wonder and
Very.
intrigue as to what's this story about. And also, it's not just RPGs in general. You get RPs with science fiction themes, RPs with fantasy themes, RPs with even contemporary settings. So
Yep.
it's also, I mean, the stories are what draw you into these games as well as the gameplay. For me, the story, the sound, you know, how does it play out, and are you invested in this game? Are you immersed straight away? And when I revisit these older games, like it's very easy because there's so many of them now, and you need more than a lifetime to play them all. To say,
True,
okay,
Right?
yeah, you need more than a
definitely.
lifetime to play them all now. I say to myself, well, do you know what? I'm not going to play Breath of Fire because it doesn't catch me. I'll play this game instead because it's caught my interest. Even though Breath of Fire may actually have better gameplay mechanics overall, I want to play this game. And let's not forget, RPG as a genre is a huge term when we talk about video games. We have you have traditional JRPG, turn-based games. We have action RPGs, okay, which involves an action element, and you have strategy RPGs as well,
Yes, don't
tactical
forget
RPGs.
SRPG.
So these are emerging genres that have evolved through turn-based RPGs, which is the traditional one. And there's also a lot more which I haven't even said, to be honest. Subgenres, adventure-based RPGs, etc., etc. But those are the three main ones I will say. And I can go
Um,
through the definitions later on if anyone wants me to. But I think we know here. We know what we're talking about.
for, for me, I think that what I do in regards to separating which is which is just I go for, oh, this is JRPG because anime aesthetics made in Japan, all that jazz. This is Western RPG. It's made by a Western developer. It has most Western
Mm.
themes or Western style. So that's generally how I do it. Because if we go into the separate SRPG, because right now, if you have seen the Dialfield Chronicles, it is not an SRPG in the normal sense, since it's more like an RTS. And also there is an Valkyria Chronicles where it is an SRPG, but at the same time it is a third-person shooter. So it is, the definition is so broad as to how technology has developed that I think we cannot. It's gonna be a whole other episode for us to
Yeah.
just properly say what we want to say in regards to the genre. So that's my take. That's my general take on it. Just
How
not
about you, Sir
too.
Dan?
I totally agree, mate. I've been having arguments with people for 20 years what consists as an RPG. So let's not
Yeah,
go there with that one.
yeah, definitely.
It's a can of worms we don't want to
It
open.
is a can of
No,
worms.
not yet, not yet. Anyway,
Not
but
yet.
I mean,
maybe soon.
it has always been asked in the fandom, what is an RPG? Because there were a lot, and it's one of those questions in the fandom that you'll have different opinions about it, and some people really stand firm on their views upon it.
Believe
It's like
so.
saying, it's like saying, is Legend of Zelda even
Yeah,
considered an RPG?
that
If you think
is the
about it,
most common one.
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
most common one, right? And or saying Chrono Trigger is the shit, change my mind.
Yeah.
And like
Mm.
I mean, there are people who says yes, it is. Maybe it's because of nostalgia.
Mm.
Back when it first came out, it was groundbreaking, sure. But then you'll have people like Sir Dan saying otherwise, saying it's not really all that. So so I was reading this book to prepare for this show. I was reading this book called Fight Magic Items, and interestingly, that paperback book was just it's just the author's way of telling the history of RPGs with a mix of excerpts from game developers and his own personal experiences playing these games. And one of the excerpts there in the book, in the introduction, saying what is an RPG, and how do you really differentiate Western RPG to a JRPG. So he says, for an RPG to be considered as a JRPG, there are a few elements there. One hero coming out from a small town, going out, boy meets girl, boy meets girl meets party, then party, and then said party will go town to town, solve problems, war, and then by the end of the and then by the end of the day, saving the world from a killer god or something. That's your cut and dry definition of a typical JRPG. And then with Western RPGs, they're more into customizations. They're more into sci-fi. They're more into fantasy. I mean, it's not like JRPGs are anything like that. Fantasy Star dwelled on it's more like a Star Wars esque storytelling and aesthetics, and people and that book in particular mentioned how the RPG started back from the days of Dungeons and Dragons as a tabletop, and then coming up with Ultima, Wizardry. Those three games were the inspiration in creating Dragon Quest, and
Mhm.
then subsequently Final Fantasy, and then subsequently Sega's answer, Fantasy Star. And all throughout that time, during the 8-bit era, the role playing games started to have some traction. Mind you, it's not that popular at the time because of the technical limitations of the NES. They had these particular games had to be scaled down just to fit on that memory, on the 64K bit 64K memory of the cartridge. And then eventually, when we moved on to the 16-bit era with the SNES and the Mega Drive, a lot more came out. And then when the 3D jumped into the PlayStation era, there were there were even there were notable RPGs.
Mm.
Notable will be Square, considered to be the king of RPGs at that time when they released Final Fantasy VII, which put the RPG genre in the map. If not putting it in the map, rejuvenated or revitalized the genre for the worldwide gamers to enjoy. So in this particular episode, guys, we are taking a side quest away from your Final Fantasy, away from your Dragon Quest. So these four members here. So we are the party members that you have right now talking about your alternative I keep saying JRPGs, RPGs,
It's
and each
okay.
one of us will come up with a few games, and we'll discuss further on why we think these particular games are um, are quite are more unique, or at least how it was overshadowed by the more no the more well known or the more established franchises out there in the said genre. So before we do that, we have a few people there in the chat. We got Sir Marlon says Final Fantasy Origins based on Wonder Swan. Really?
Mm. Mm.
Joshua Hunt, hi Aviraj, and Sir Dan.
Mm.
Um, Final Fantasy Origins Chronicles Anthology based on the original console release with some alternate console release. So who would? Oh, so I would give the floor first to the newcomer. How about Sir Drew? Sir Drew.
Okay.
The Drew.
Okay. Okay. So my introduction to JRPGs or RPG in general is Final Fantasy Tactics. So oddly, I played Final Fantasy Tactics first before Final Fantasy VII, and they say that your favorite the first JRPG will always be your favorite, and that is true for me, but not just in the reasons behind that it is my first. It is because there is so much in that particular game that it added. There's the story, the music, everything. Anyway, everybody knows Final Fantasy Tactics. So moving into the PlayStation Portable, you either played Final Fantasy Tactics or the also remaster Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling Together. So many people do not know a certain game called Jean d'Arc. So I only have the Japanese copy because I cannot afford since it's a little bit obscure now. But
Woo!
hey,
Don't believe it.
so yeah. Anyway, John the Arc. It is an SRPG which is um if you compare it to Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling Together, yes, they are all three of these are set in the medieval era, but its art style is a little bit cell shady ish. I think it's full. I'm not sure if it's really full on cell shading. So it's a little bit more anime in its presentation. But one thing that sets it apart is that the party members here have do not have the job system like the previous games that where you for example in Final Fantasy Tactics you could make Ramsa into a mime, into a barb, into a mathematician, or whatever you want them to be. In the certain game, whatever their whatever they are or whatever classes they start with do not really derive too much from the start to the end game, or more on they just became more and more powerful from what they are. Also I do like that its story wise there's something here that plays a homage to Legend of Dragoon, wherein a particular member would would no longer be accessible in later parts, and the power is transferred to another party member. Something like that. Anyway, so if you were the reason why I discovered this is because when I love a certain game, I really dig through. I really try to find other games that are similar to this, so I could properly say that this is an alternative or the underrated SRPG in the PlayStation Portable era. So if you do like the styles of Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre, do check out John the Arc. So I'm gonna leave it there, so not to take too much of our time for that particular game. So have you guys played John the Arc?
I'm not. That's the first I've seen of it, mate, and I like the look of it. I like the look of it. Not played it before, but I'll look to give that a try one day. Definitely, mate.
Yeah, I've not heard of that, to be honest, but it's definitely worth checking out for sure.
Yeah, I
So
really do recommend it. But so if you like Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre, do
Mm.
check that out.
What makes it?
And
What makes it better than Final Fantasy Tactics to you, mate?
it not particularly better, but it's that there are only a couple of classes, or rather a couple of particular characters from Final Fantasy Tactics that really have their own identity
Right.
or their own job class that you want to keep. For example, you have Thunder God Sid, or Sidolfas Orlando, he is the most powerful unit in the Final Fantasy Tactics game. That once you get him, you no longer want to make him into a Dark Knight, into a mime, or you just want to keep him as he is because he is unique in his own way because he has such an OP class. To a lesser extent, there is Agrias, where she has some of the skills that Orlando has. But then you have Ramsa, and you have the other characters where you would be seeking out into changing them into other classes for
Right.
them to be able to be powerful.
Yeah.
Wherein you have John the Arc, wherein they all have their separate classes, rather than being somebody who could be anything that you could mold them to be. They are their own character, not only in story but also in gameplay.
Right.
So yeah, so if you guys have, I assume that you guys are familiar with the job system of Final Fantasy, since it's really really well known and integrated to almost all of their games pre 13, pre yeah, pre 13, or I think 12. Final Fantasy 12 is when they stopped doing the job, where a certain character could learn anything the other classes could learn. I'm not sure if I'm
It's
right.
different. It's different for each Final Fantasy has a different take on it. I think the job systems in the Final Fantasy series are mostly predominant in Final Fantasy V, which happens to be my favorite Final Fantasy game, and Final Fantasy X2. They're the main ones with the job systems.
Yeah.
10
So
2.
yeah.
They've got different variations of them throughout, but those two are, the job system is at the front of the mechanics and the combat, whereas others it's dialed back for some. Some it's omitted entirely. So it just depends what entry you play, really.
Yeah. For
Okay.
example, you have the Final Fantasy X, wherein you could open up all the nodes of their
Yeah,
skill set, of their skill tree, wherein you just start on different ends, but at the same time you could end up getting everybody else's skills. So gameplay wise, you could end up just not having any real differentiation from each and every one.
yeah, yeah. Which,
So
which is that's how
yeah.
it ends up, isn't it? You end up Final Fantasy X. You end up everybody's the same apart from Wacker. Wacker's got the best limit break,
Yeah.
and that's it. So that's yeah. So nice one, mate.
So do you want me to continue on with the list, or do we move on to somebody else?
So with John the Ark, so this is a different retelling of Joan of Arc, the patron saint of France, saying this village girl had a vision of had this vision, saying that she was the apostle of God to bring France deliverance from the English invasion back in the 16th 17th century. And so this is a loose adaptation of that story. And this is for the PlayStation Portable, guys. If you haven't heard about it, it's a strategy RPG, and you have notable characters there. And some characters were also taken from I'm not gonna say fairy tale, but from the lore, from the lore of Joan of Arc. And the enemies here are either monsters, or it's either the monsters or the English invasion during the insurrection of France. So some terminologies here will be from medieval France. And the similarities between this game and Final Fantasy Tactics, aside from the job system, there are you'll have knights here, very medieval. So, and just like Final Fantasy Tactics have its own medieval-ish aesthetics, So this is not too far off. The main protagonist here is obviously it's Joan. It's Joan, and unlike what happens to Joan in the lore, this has a better. This game has a better fate waiting for Joan. If you guys are are
For
familiar
John.
with the lore,
A better
so
fate awaiting
um,
for John.
oh no, no, no one is going to be burned at the stake here. That's all I'm going to say. It's a lot. This game has a better. This game has a better ending. So to speak. The attacks, skill system, and the magic system as well. It may not be as extravagant as Final Fantasy Tactics, but in its own unique way, it also stands out. So for you guys, if you haven't heard or you haven't played Jean d'Arc, you can still play this. I think it fetches quite a hefty sum if you're going to buy it on
Yeah,
eBay.
yeah.
Hmm. For the US release, I think it would cost you. The last time I checked was around $200 $300 US dollars if you're going to buy the US version release. How much did you pay for the Japanese version, Sir Drew? How much is
Could
it?
you see it?
How much is it?
Is it visible? Here it is. Here it is.
270 yen, is it?
270 yen. Hmm.
Yeah,
Oh,
Oh,
that's
um,
two
a little
dollars.
bit of a little bit of a side note. When I was in Japan back in 2019, I did saw John the Arc, a, one copy, a US copy, mind you, of John the Arc inside Surigaya, inside the Surigaya
No.
store in Akihabara, and I'm like,
Oh,
and yeah, I mean because because the labels for the US is different from
yeah.
the zero system for Japan. It was sticking like an eyesore. I'm like, what the hell? Emma, is that John the Arc? US version. It was I think it was 2,500 yen at the
oof.
time, and I'm like,
Mm.
sure, I'll get it. I don't care.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, out of
Actually,
all of the Japanese games, that's the only US game that I saw. I said,
Mm.
sure, yoink.
actually, out of all, speaking of Surugaya, out of all the video game stores, Surugaya is the place where I got most of my USR1 PlayStation 3 copies from. So,
Mm.
and I've already done a bunch of videos regarding Surugaya. I cannot really say how much of an awesome place it is, no matter which Surugaya you go to, there's gonna be you're not gonna leave there empty-handed.
No, you're not gonna
Definitely
do it
not.
empty. I mean,
No.
even if it's a Japanese copy, sure.
Yes,
Sir
definitely.
Marlon here says he throw in his opinion in the hat. So he says Eternal Eyes as a tactical JRPG for the PlayStation One. Eternal Eyes. Hmm.
Mm.
Mm. I I may have played it, but I'm not sure because my memory's a
Very
little bit foggy
Pokemon-ish
from.
game that Eternal
Yeah,
Eyes.
but mostly if it's an SRPG, I tend to really go and because before it was rarer. Nowadays it's a little bit more common since it's a little bit more celebrated. But yeah, I'll definitely check that out. I'll check Eternal Eyes out. Maybe it's something that I have never seen.
I would say Eternal Eyes is the precursor to Phantom Brave and Disgaea. So even before there was Phantom Brave, even before there was Disgaea,
Mm,
there was Eternal Eyes.
was it
So for that's for
also
the PlayStation
circular?
One. You'll see the similarities once you see
Okay,
the
okay.
gameplay.
I'll go check
Okay.
that out. I'll go check that out.
Number two on your list, Sir Drew.
Okay, so number two on my list. This was actually not gonna be the one on my list, so I tend to change this up a little bit. And this is a pretty common game, and many people would actually not pay mind to it. This is this is by far not better than Valkyria Chronicles, mind you. This is just an alternative that has been bashed. This is actually a game that's bashed a lot because of its gameplay, its wacky art style, its theme, and this game is another
Steam.
somewhat SRPG-ish.
Conan.
SRPG-ish. So an alternative to Valkyria Chronicles. This is coding Steam. So very cheap, mind you. I think you could get this for $3. I assume because I checked last time, and the reason why I say it is an alternative is same where you take in where you do turns using steam power, and if it's your turn you move in a third person perspective. You shoot your opponents with your steam power, and you could also use Fire Emblem characters Mark and Ike on this particular game. And the reason why I like this clicked with me is because I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Freedom Force and Freedom Force versus the Third Reich on PC. It is an RTS game where anyway, same art style. And this particular game uses real US I mean Steam World aesthetics, and
Steampunk.
it steampunk. Yeah, thank you for correct
Mm.
steampunk
Steampunk.
aesthetics.
There you go.
And the only real reason I brought it up is that it's not as bad as people tend to say it is, and it's a rather enjoyable change of pace, a little bit less serious, a little bit more not, a more comical. It's a comical take, but at the same time you could have a really decent time playing this game. And for what it costs now, the US, I think there's only a US version. I haven't I'm not sure if I've seen the Japanese version of this, maybe because I'm just not looking. But yeah, an very underrated game on the 3DS. Alternative to Valkyria Chronicles, codename Steam. So, guys, thoughts, opinions on this particular game?
You know what this reminds me of as I look at it? It reminds me of Valkyria Chronicles a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know what I mean.
and
It's just to start, just the way that they've got that, like as he's throwing he's doing his line of sight and his grades and that. I think it's
Yep.
from a gameplay point of view. It when I saw it, I straight away thought of Valkyria Chronicles.
so
As
I'm not really saying that it's better because it is by no way near to be in comparison to Valkyria. I just brought it
In
up
terms of
because
gameplay.
most people, so many people,
Push it
bash
down,
on
yeah.
this. They complain on this game, but hey, it is here as an alternative if you want to play something like Valkyria on the 3DS, and if you want a alternate style, because I tend to like comic early this type of art style, the way where it's comical, it's a little bit more lighthearted, like Citizens Unite, those games, Earthbound, those are South Park. These are games that are um I also for Costume Quest games
Costume quest.
that are light, I mean lightly themed. They You are also fighting a greater evil in all of these games, but they are more I mean they are accessible for everyone. Accessible for everyone, not just as adults. So if you're a kid, you want to get into you want to try an RPG, so they are more welcoming than the usual melancholic tones of all the games, or the JRPGs, Western RPGs that we are used to. So as an alternative, this is one of those games.
Yeah, yeah. No, I can like I say from a gameplay point of view, mate. You can see straight away. You can see straight away. I'd like to try this one out. This is definitely one I'm going to put down to have a look at because I love Valkyria Chronicles. So yeah, good recommendation, that mate. I like it.
I've recently, I've actually hacked my 3DS, so I can just download this. This is a game that I overlooked when I was adding a whole compilation on my 3DS, and it's something that I'll have to look into. It generally has a nice aesthetic. Can you tell me, what's the 3D like on it? Because obviously it's got 3D graphics, and we can't really see here. Does the 3D really pop, or is that not a really big deal for you? That's the question I'd
I
have to ask.
I gotta be honest. I rarely do the 3D thing on my 3D.
I rarely even do the 3D as well. It kind of hurts my
What is
eyes.
the meaning of this? This is an outrage. All right, fair
I
enough.
think
Fair
I
enough.
did it. I did it once when I played Icarus or something.
Yeah,
I
Kid Icarus
forgot which
Uprising
game.
is good. But what 3DSs are you using? Is it the new 3DS or the original?
The new 3DS, because
Okay.
I bought it simply because it's the only one that could play Xenoblade
Because you
when
got the C
Xenoblade was
stick. Yeah,
released.
you got the C
Yeah,
stick.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
I know.
that's the reason why I
The
took it.
3D on that is a
I
lot
got
better. The 3D. I just wanted to make a point for those of you watching and for those of you here. The 3DS is a life is a world apart from the original 3DS. And whilst we're talking RPGs and graphics have gotten better in time, but with turn-based RPGs, etc., it's not as much of a big deal. Although presentation is very important, and I do like graphics that pop. I'm one of those weird people, but anyway, it's something that I like. I like the 3D gimmick. I love that about the 3DS because it really does increase the definition of what you're watching sometimes. So some games it can pull off quite well, some games not so much. That's why I asked the question, but it's something that I like
Wait,
to experience of myself. It's something I like to. But my general overall opinion for this game is I like the aesthetic. I like steampunk. I like the design of it. I think that does offer. I mean, I've not played Valkyria Chronicles, so I can't compare. But it does offer something unique because I haven't
what?
seen anything like this. No,
really.
not played it. No, not yeah, really, not played it.
Brilliant,
It's
brilliant game, mate.
Okay.
Well,
Sega.
brilliant series. Sorry,
It,
brilliant series.
it's by Sega.
Hey,
By
listen,
Sega.
it is what it is.
Okay, okay,
But not
okay.
played it. But
Yeah,
it's
that's
something that
yeah,
I
fine.
like.
yeah, yeah.
That's
Just
fine, that's
kidding.
fine.
Just kidding.
With Codename Steam, I've seen Codename Steam in our on our trip shops here in Sydney, and for the longest time I've been ignoring it. It's on sale, like around $5 Australian, and the only reason why I picked it up is because
Mm.
Sir Drew posted in JRPG Philippines that he bought the game, and why would he even post this game if it's not RPG related, right?
Mm.
So I checked the gameplay, and oh shit, it really does resemble Valkyria Chronicles as far as the gameplay is concerned. What I if there's one thing that probably one of the reasons why it was underwhelming is because of the cover. A few things. Number one is the cover art. It doesn't really
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
it really does the game a disservice. It kind of fools you on. It kind of looks cartoonish, so it kind of fools the consumer on getting it and looking at the back cover. If you have the back cover, if you can see the back cover there, Sir Drew, it doesn't really do anything better. I mean,
yeah.
honestly, look at the back cover right there.
Actually,
It doesn't really give you anything.
yeah. And the only real reason why I got into this is because I love Freedom Force and Freedom Force versus the Third Reich. I don't know if you guys are familiar with those games. It's only on the PC. Um, it's basically it's like World of Warcraft or Starcraft, but it's solo play. You have this group of superheroes. You have your own Justice League, your own set of Avengers set in this comical world where they battle Nazis. So love those games and the PC, and that's the reason why I got this. I tried this game
I mean, I would
anyway.
say if the presentation was drawn if the presentation was drawn in an anime-ish kind of manner, it may have received at least a decent attention from the consumers. But
Yeah,
because of the cartoonish aesthetic of it,
definitely.
it
Uh,
did kind of hurt. Mm.
yeah, like Comic Zone. They presented Comic Zone
Like,
like it's
mm,
just straight out of the comics, so something like that.
yeah.
So
Well,
we
they did the
know
same with. This is the same with Beautiful Joe as well, if you remember that.
Yeah,
Yep.
Beautiful Joe, another awesome game from Platinum. So
One.
presented as it presented the main attraction as its art style. So if they went ahead and presented the art style as its selling point, maybe more people who like me love the art style of the aforementioned game would more than likely try it out, and not the other way around where something like this is, they would think that it's a kids game, or rather a kiddie game,
They think it's
like
they think
yeah,
it's
a
a kids game.
shovelware.
That's
Yeah,
the thing.
I think a lot of Nintendo games suffer with that. I'll always look back at Wind Waker when that came out for the Cube, and it was I don't like this cell shaded graphics. Why couldn't they make Link a proper man? Why couldn't they make it look more humanoid? You know, whatever. Why'd they have to make it look like a little cartoon for children? But when you actually get into Wind Waker, I'd say that's one of my favorite Zelda games of all time. I really love that game.
Well,
But
that's the thing. That's the thing. If Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft are not showing up trailers of gameplays of their new releases of games, then then the marketing suffers as well. So by the end of the day, you'll end up subpar sales numbers, is because what you see, what the consumer see is they're thinking, oh, this might be something different, unless
what's
they buy
what's
it,
that,
they try it out.
what's the age rating on that game, by the way? What's the title on that
E,
particular one?
T
it's
E.
E,
E for
T
everyone. T
E for
T
everyone.
T T. So it's
Oh,
for
T for
teenagers.
teen.
Okay,
for
so
teens.
for 13 plus, I mean,
Nah,
they what? Oh, I don't know. I mean, they could have
nah.
made it a bit more adult for teens, but then
I mean, by the enemies, you're only killing monsters and aliens, Sir Viraj. I mean, unlike Valkyria Chronicles, you actually kill people.
yeah,
You
so
You
go for the
actually shoot people
headshot
in the
on
head,
people.
right?
Yeah.
well, that's probably
Hmm.
why I never played that game because it scared that would horrify me. I'll be
Oh,
honest.
is it too violent for you, Sir
Yeah,
Viraj? Really?
yeah. I'd,
That's where you draw the line,
I'd
really.
have I'd have nightmares. I'd cry myself to sleep over that. Anyway, no, no. All jokes aside, I do think that it's a tough one when they market a video game because on one hand you have to, you know, make a game out then you want it to sell, but if it's too adult, because parents do buy a lot of video games for children as well, so if a game is like as a teenager, they're not working yet, an early teenager, and they say I want this for my birthday, I want this for Christmas or whatever, parent will look at that game thinking, okay, is this appropriate for my child? So there's that aspect too. But on the other side, you've got adults who look at these games, they're thinking, who actually want to play these games, and they're thinking, "Oh, this is a bit too childish for
Too
me
kiddie
from
for
just
me.
looking at it." They look at
Yeah.
it, and it's. I think those of us, all of us, have probably been in this position where thinking, like for example, Wind Waker, the example I said. Well, I like Zelda games. It's the gameplay I'm buying. It's not exactly my favorite aesthetic, but I'm going to play it and give it a go, and it turned out to be a great game. So sometimes we have to look beyond that, and especially with RPGs now, you have to look beyond that because it's the art direction of where the studio wanted to go to, and if you can't, then I'm afraid that's your loss.
Definitely.
Mm. Anyway,
Yeah, unfortunately, it is also the loss of the publishers and the developers. Yeah,
It hurts the
Right.
game. It hurts the game.
Unfortunately.
Right.
Anyway, yeah. Keeping up with the cell shaded teams, I would go to my third game, and I would like to ask you guys, when you say PlayStation 2 cell shaded game, cell shaded JRPG, which games would you
Dragon
with the
Age,
cell shaded?
There are a lot.
Dragon Quest 8 straight away.
Yeah, Dragon Quest 8
God, Cloud.
or
Oh yeah,
yeah,
PlayStation 2. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Dragon Quest 8. You
Dragon
got
Quest 8,
Arton
God, Cloud.
Naliko. You got Mana Kemia. You
Was Star Ocean?
got
Star
the
Ocean?
Ateliers, Star Oceans, a
Yeah.
few. Tales of
So,
Abyss, kind of.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
What else in there?
Okay, so
I mean, there are a lot.
yeah,
Mm.
luckily none of you guys said the next game that
Oh.
I say I would really I really love this game. I love it so
Maybe out of
much
toys.
that I love this so much. I actually named my firstborn with the name of one of the characters here,
Ooh.
and this one.
Mega Man X.
The next, yeah.
Command
Of
Mission.
course.
Command Mission.
Command
Command
Mission.
Mission.
Oh, I remember
Command
selling
Mission.
that game was actually in the shop I used to work at. I remember putting it on my shelf and nobody bought it. I had to sell it for like 97p. Someone got a
It is-
bargain. Yeah, that game. Yeah, that game. Somebody just bought it for because it was because in time like games get reduced a lot. If like a year it doesn't sell, just to clear it, the company would automatically reduce the price to 97 pence, and somebody bought it. Someone got a bargain with that one. But anyway, sorry to break your heart
I
with
would-
that. But
No,
I'm
no,
sure
no,
it's a
that's
great
fine.
game.
I
I'm
would-
sure it's a great game. So
Yeah, and I would actually argue that in regards to spin-offs, this is one of those games that they did with Rockman that they did really, really well, in my opinion, because not only does it have an amazing art style, it actually has a decent story for a spin-off. And if you have been playing the Rackman X series, the series story tends to be a little bit convoluted in regards to Sigma coming back, and yeah, and all of those. It's really hard to keep track what's really happening. But is it the story of Rackman X Command Mission is isolated from that, and not totally isolated, but a little bit isolated from that, and it actually got me with a certain plot twist. So that's it. That's the whole thing that I'm gonna say in regards to the story. But the reason why this game I love this game so much is battle system, wherein it is turn based, but at the same time the way you control each of the characters. For example, Mega Man, you know that he charges his Buster Shot. So when you play him, you actually hold down the X button so that he would charge his Buster Shot, then you would release it. Then if you're gonna control Zero, you're gonna do some fighting game esque command inputs on your controller, like you Hadouken or the Shoryuken, the motions,
all right. Okay.
and so it's different for each of the characters. Like here you're seeing here Spider. He is a card based character, and it comes with a little bit of luck for you to in regards to your damage. So you control them. They have input control different from each other, and I like the aesthetics so much. It's Mega Man at the same time. It is cell shaded, and um yeah, that's I don't think I could do more than that to really hype the game up or to convince people to try it out, but because I believe all the people who are into Rackman X have already at least tried it, or people who are into Rockman.exe have at least tried it. Maybe. I wish so. I wish they did. And this is the one port I'm actually really, really waiting Capcom to give me on the Switch, because they're gonna release Rockman.exe. So it's only this and Rockman Legends left. So um just bundle them all together, give it to me so that I save money and get what I want at the same time, please, Capcom. So yeah. So have you guys tried Mega Man, Rockman X Command Mission, or rather
Um,
Mega?
I've played Mega Man Battle Network. That's the Mega Man RPG series I played on the Advance, and there were 10 of those that came out, and they were very successful. This,
And
this
they're
particular one, when I think of Mega Man, I think of him as a 2D side-scrolling action game. I don't really think of him as an RPG, and I think that's why this game. Like, I think maybe there were so many games that I used to sell in the shop I used to work in, and this one probably got obscured because like how we said again, and this breaks back to the point earlier. Mega Man was always seen as a younger person's game, whereas if someone was going to buy an RPG, they'd always go for the mainstream stuff, which is like Final Fantasy and stuff like that. Although that being said, games like Star Ocean would just sit on my shelf, and it would just reduce. And I think the last one I sold was £10. Star Ocean till the end of time on PS2 for £10. What a bargain, right? But I think the game really has to pop, and I think Mega Man as a series, people would like look at it and think, no, I want Mega Man as an action game. I don't want it as an RPG. I think that's what it was. I'm just making an assumption here. I don't know.
yeah,
What
I
why that
totally
game wasn't loved.
understand, and I
But
totally see the point.
but I can see the merit that this game has. Another thing that I would say is, again, the reason I was one of those snobs back in the day that just didn't know better, and I'd listen to people. And again, we're going back how like people always say to me, like when I was introduced to RPGs, you should play Chrono Trigger. That's a really good SNES game. You should play Terranigma. You should play, all the Square stuff and the Enix stuff, and that dominated. And the truth is, if you're only going to have so much time to play an RPG, you want to play a good one, right? And if people are recommending and shouting, okay, go for this, this, and this, whereas something obscure as this, that may very well be a great game. You're naming it, so it must be good for something, right? This is a game that's obscure, an unsung hero of a game. And it's something that I've clearly missed out on, because I love Mega Man as an IP, and I have played the Mega Man Battle Network RPGs on the Advance, and they're wonderful games. This one is one that I've missed out on with regret.
That's a great point, mate, because this is exactly why I wanted to do something like
recommend
this.
it, especially for fan.
So yeah, mate.
What did you just say? Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, us introducing and recommending things to each other is actually, yeah, and that's really one of the things that why we as gamers do reach out to other gamers, is to get more knowledge on things that we haven't tried and recommend also like based on what they have told us. And that might be also the reason why time has created so many obscure titles, because when we were young, the internet was not really a and we don't really have that much of an access, and we don't really have that much option in choosing our games, and we only get the word of mouth from the things that are already established. And I think the lack of technology really was the bottleneck in terms of getting the word out on these titles. And I believe during the PlayStation 2 era, only people who bought magazines, tips and tricks, electronic gaming monthly, those types of people would have heard of this particular game. So us seeing it on a shelf without any real knowledge on what it is, what it offers, and yeah, I think that's what really created this scenario for these titles that are unsung, that are underrated.
I think, sorry, to just go on this IP again. I'm not having a go at the IP, but I am. When I think of Mega Man and Mega Man X, again, I've made this point already about it's really a side-scroller sort of run-and-gun platformer. And those games, I've beaten Mega Man 1 to 7. I've beaten Mega Man X 1 to X to 3, and I never played X4, 5, and X6. But when the X7 and X8 came out for the PlayStation 2, respectively, they weren't very successful. And when Mega Man made that transition into 3D, I think that's also what may have hurt this game. Even though this is a totally different genre, it's an RPG.
Yeah,
I think what hurt Mega Man, and I remember like playing Mega Man X8 at the Awesome Games shop that was across the shop I worked at, and he had it on demo. I thought, this game is slow, it's clunky, I don't like the way it controls. And I just put the controller down, and that was it. And that was obviously in the Mega Man series, but because it didn't have that same magic the 2D games had. Whereas this is obviously an RPG. So, okay, whilst you've got the Mega Man X series that's been hurt with the 3D gameplay, and even the reviews at the time weren't exactly shining, I think when you look at this as an RPG, it's totally a different thing, but it still might have been tainted with the same brush for whatever reason, sadly. I think that
Josh just said exactly the same in it, mate.
The IP.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't bad games, the 3D Mega Man games, but comparatively speaking to another game of a genre which Mega Man was in 3D, it had a lot of competition, and it had a lot to live up to as well, sadly. But
yeah, the competition. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you now. One of the reasons why I remember seeing this about, one of the reasons I weren't interested is because it felt a bit old hat at the time, and like it was between worlds. Because, like I say, Mega Man is platforming. That's what we were raised on. It was a platforming game. So to see something like this, it didn't. It didn't. I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't. I can't remember if I saw it in a magazine or where, but I remember just looking over a few games like similar to this and just kind of being dismissive of them. Do you know what I mean? For those reasons.
Yeah. I think it's in my mind. It's the case of when I'm playing a Mega Man game. Oh, some action, man, not some.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's what it is. Not to say that this is a bad RPG. Obviously, we've had we've had someone say this is actually a very good game.
Yeah, yeah,
Give it a go. So it's sad in that regard because it's the IP which has damaged what it is, but then it's not the IP you need to look at. It's actually the raw game element of it. And if you love the IP and you love RPGs, then go for it. But then there are those Mega Man fans that see Mega Man as a certain type of game. So I don't know. Maybe that's it.
It's just like expecting steak and getting ice cream, isn't it? It's simple as that.
Well,
You know
they
what I
did
mean?
something. They did something similar on the PSP with Metal Gear Solid with Metal Gear Acid. That's a totally different game to Metal Gear Solid, right? Metal Gear Acid is a tactical game with cards in there, card-based element. So they did something different there, and I didn't really enjoy Metal Gear. I mean, I played Metal Gear Acid. I thought, wait, what's this? I thought this was gonna be like Metal Gear Solid. This is a totally different game. It's an abomination. But then I realized you have to give it a chance because it's a different kind of game altogether. But the thing is, you were expecting Metal Gear Solid. With this thing, obviously it's labeled as an RPG. You know from picking up the game, you think, okay, it's maybe not for me. But then an RPG game, and like I said at the time, I'm going around in circles here. Would rather play Final Fantasy X or something like that. But anyway,
in regarding with command mission, my take on this when we did our Mega Man X episode a couple of years back, I said that this is Capcom trying to jump in with the RPG boom at the time. So RPGs were making a huge buzz. There were a lot of RPGs coming out in the late 90s and early 2000s, and Capcom is like, oh, okay, let's do Mega Man but make it an RPG. So let's try that. However, sure, the combat system is more refined, but everything else has been subpar. The world building in terms of their environments, the world map has been underwhelming to say the least. And with the Mega Man X, this is just me, with the Mega Man X series, even though they're story wise, they're supposed to be interconnected, but the world where this games takes place, they don't feel the same world, if that makes sense.
Definitely not. Definitely
with
not.
Mega Man with Mega Man X, same characters, yeah, but the aesthetic of Robo City, or what do you call the city? It's like that, and then coming to X2, it's a different setting. X3 is a different setting. X4 is a different setting. X5 different setting. So to me, it kind of hurts the world building that you're trying to do with the same old characters, but every world setting that you're doing is not really interconnected to everything else that you're doing. And then going to command mission, you're thinking, okay, where is this game in between
Located in
on
the
the main
timeline.
series, in the timeline? Where exactly are we? Where exactly are we? When exactly are we? So, if you are a casual fan of Mega Man, sure, but you are an RPG enthusiast, then give it a try. If you are a hardcore Mega Man fan, this may not be for you, because you are used to, like Sir Viraj mentioned, a 2D platforming, 2D platforming. Uh, just shoot whenever comes in front of you, slash whoever comes right in front of you. That's it. You don't take turns
Yeah.
in doing this. If although they did try to make it more action RPG element when they did Mega Man X7 or X8, I think. It was still in 3D, still, and not a lot of people were very appreciative of that, though.
Including me.
But I digress. So, what's next on your list, Sir Drew?
Okay, so going back into SRPG again. Um, and this is an alternate take, or rather, something else for you to play besides Fire Emblem. And Fire Emblem as a series is there has never been that much interaction in regards to elevation. So when you're playing Fire Emblem, it's mostly just flat surface, something that you cannot go through, or something of the likes. Wherein this particular game is like Final Fantasy Tactics, where there's elevation, where there's
Oh, you mean terrain,
um,
different
yeah,
terrains, you mean?
yeah, different terrains. The terrains really do matter in this particular game, and funnily enough, it is a spiritual successor to a release from before that went a little bit. I think it's went a little bit head to head with the Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced series. This is a spiritual successor to the Luminous Arc series. So this the game's title is Stella Glow. So
Oh,
here's the
Still a
here's
3D.
glow.
Oh, a 3DS
yeah,
game.
Stella Glow. Yeah,
Mm.
so
Okay.
basically plot wise it is you are Alto, wherein you could unlock the the songs from this particular heroines, or rather this particular witches, and you unlock uh their their powers, which are world map wide when you unlock them. For example, one of them, when you unlock her power, it heals everyone on your team. It's like the summons from the from Final Fantasy Tactics, wherein it's a map wide effect. And during those time, you have this particular, I think, powered up time. Anyway, so as an alternate or to the Fire Emblem Fates, Fire Emblem Awakening series,
Hmm.
this is a much more refreshing take, since the characters here are so what do you call this, a little, I know they're a little bit cliche anime wise, and one of them is even a ninja that has brown grocery bag on her head because she's particularly shy. It's like anime gone wild in terms of the characters on this particular game. And a little bit aesthetic wise, it's a little bit similar to John the Arc earlier, but since this is my alternate to Fire Emblem, something else
Hmm.
to that should have that should be talked more about, since I really like the characteristics of each of the characters here do resemble their powers. The ninja, there's only one ninja, but there are two marks. There's two marksmans. Oh yeah, there's two marksmans, and it is anime cliche to the point wherein you're fighting this person, power up friendship, or something like that. So um at the end that you're fighting godlike entities, angels, and everything. So an alternative to Fire Emblem, if you're looking for something more akin to Final Fantasy Tactics rather than the rocks, paper, scissors style of Fire Emblem, do check out Stella Glow. Um, I cannot,
If you
I
can
can
afford
say,
it, sure.
yeah. Why?
If you can
Oh,
afford it.
why do we
Why?
have to always preach the legitimate path? There is an illegitimate path as well, you know. But anyway, we have to be legitimate on
I
this channel,
haven't
right?
really checked how much this has gone for nowadays.
Oh,
Because
let's
I
check it
actually
out.
got this on release day, and finally, one a funny story regarding this. When I got this, I actually have two choices for what game to get. It's either this, or our no
Oh, you know, it's
search.
not. It's not too bad. I mean, it's £46.89 if I buy a Stellar Glow, so it's not actually going to kill me.
Okay.
So it's not too bad. I mean, it's expensive. Don't get me wrong. I know it's a £30 game. £30 game for 46. Yeah, a lot worse. There's a lot worse.
A lot worse, mate. A lot worse.
Fire Emblem in itself is expensive. Like,
Fire Emblem,
Yep,
I know
that's
it's
true. That's
expensive
true.
I mean, I've got Fire
I
Emblem.
miss out on Fates.
I've got Fire Emblem Fates. I'm like, how much does that go for? I wonder how much it goes for. Anyway, but I love Fire Emblem because that's one. I think I own five Fire Emblem games legitimately. But I own 5 of them, and Fates is one I have, and I really love it. 53. God, he wants £70 for that game. Okay, someone's selling it for 36. Well, okay, that's an auction. But yeah, okay. But Fire Emblem does go up because it's such a cult thing with Nintendo, isn't it? I mean, I bought the first Fire Emblem game on the Advance, the first Western release of Fire Emblem, and that goes for £100 now. It's ridiculous. So look, I do love Fire Emblem. I know you said, it's got a rock paper scissors battle system, and yeah, it hurts me to admit to that. Yeah, it is the case. But I love the storytelling in Fire Emblem. That's one thing I love about the Fire Emblem series. It's quite a well written story in the games that I've played. What about this particular game? I mean, Stellar Glow, I do like the art design. I like the way it plays. Okay, you got these anime characters, but okay, whatever. I like the way it plays. But what's the story like in this game? I mean, what drew you in to this particular game story-wise?
Anime-ish.
Okay.
Anime-ish, as in all the cliches are there. I think one of the main cons regarding this, one of the main complaints is the cliche, the tropes that are in this game.
Okay. So there's a bit of tongue-in-cheek humor in there. Okay.
Yeah, definitely a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor, a lot of otaku lewdness on this particular game. It is a very otaku game. If I have to summarize it into a sentence, it's a very otaku SRPG game.
It is for the weebs, Sir Viraj.
It's
Let's
for
just
the
say,
weebs,
let's just put it at that.
definitely.
It's for the weebs out there.
Say no more. Say no more.
I've seen
Say no more.
what is it? Is her name Hilda, the witch?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of cosplay of her on Twitter. I've seen a lot of cosplay of her on Twitter. So yeah, I get where you're coming from, mate.
All right.
So since also Fire Emblem is also a game for weeb, since it's basically a waifu and a husband simulator.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say any more on that on Fire Emblem, man. I suppose there is a truth to that because, but I'm not going to say if I had any crush on these Fire Emblem characters.
Actually, I'm still playing Engage up to now. I've been since release. I haven't touched any other game except Engage. So yeah, it's still in the Fire Emblem. It's still in the Fire Emblem train, and it's not stopping it.
I mean, out of all the games you mentioned, I actually like this one the most because because obviously I've touched Fire Emblem, and this is only it's got the same genetics of it, and it builds on more on it. So this is quite interesting. I might have to look into this one. Stellar Glow.
Good choice, mate. Good choice.
Good choice. This one.
Stellar Glow.
All right. Are we done with your games list?
There should be one more.
There's one more, but okay. So it's a bit of a stretch because there's not really a lot of JRPGs, or rather RPGs, in this particular art style. So this is an alternate to the Vanillaware games. We have Oboro Muramasa, and we have Odin Sphere from Vanillaware, wherein you have
Odin Sphere.
side-scrolling type of gameplay. It has such beautiful storytelling, and I think it's not really in comparison or in the same atmosphere as these two particular games. I love Vanillaware so much that it actually hurts me to say this is an alternate. It actually, because when you say 2D side-scrolling battle, beautiful art style JRPG, you could only either say Odin Spear or Odin Spear or Oboro Muramasa. So um, this is just if you have played these two particular games and you still need to scratch that itch, that something along those lines, I would recommend checking out Dust on Elysian Tale. Unfortunately, I do not have a physical copy of this, and I think it's only released. I'm not even sure who released it, or if it was even released as a physical copy by your GG Games or LRG. SRG. I currently do not own any games from those particular publishers. Anyway, so Dust on Elysian Tale, story wise, not in any particular way gonna be that memorable, but gameplay wise, that is what's really fantastic in regards to this. And you could chain combos to it's like doing Devil May Cry combos, but in a 2D JRPG setting. So just an alternate, and I don't really have much to say about this, rather than it has a very memorable gameplay because I forgot the story. So the only real reason I'm recommending this is I like the gameplay because it's really engaging, like Devil May Cry, something like that. Oh, and keep I'm doing these combos, lots of numbers, lots of beautiful things are happening on the screen. So if you have played Oboro Muramasa and Odin Spear, still need to scratch that itch because I don't think there's any other game right now that's like this. I know there's a lot of Metroidvanias, but in this particular setting, I think this is as close as we can get.
Mm. Oh wow. Okay.
Now this is one this is a total new one on me. This one, mate, a total new one
It,
on
it
me.
reminds me a bit of I'm not saying it is, but it reminds me a bit of Hollow Knight in its art design. But obviously, this is better graphics than Hollow Knight, and it's an action RPG. It looks like with Metroidvania elements. Obviously, you're obviously I can see it's got a level up system. So I'm
I
wondering
think you're
where
playing
does
in 60 frames per second here, no? 60 FPS. I mean, the movement is so fluid.
I'll be honest
Yeah,
with you. I love that.
the,
I was not impressed with Odin Sphere. I didn't enjoy it, but I like the idea of it. And I'm looking at this. I'm thinking this looks like a great alternative, a really great alternative, mate.
mm, mm, it is nice looking. This game. It reminds me of in the way it plays. I mean, so
It's just
Guardian Heroes.
it's not okay, not Guardian Heroes, but it's so I don't know if you ever played Castlevania Aria of Sorrow
yeah.
Ah,
on the
yeah,
advance.
Aria.
So it's like that. Obviously, this is a world apart from Aria of Sorrow. Obviously, you've got a level up system, but you do have a map there, don't you? So there is an exploration element to this game, and that's why that's why I link it to a Metroidvania style game. The question is this is loosely an RPG from where I see it. I see it more action than RPG, but obviously you have the level up system up there. So I can understand why you would say, okay, this is an alternative RPG.
Yeah, I think
And it's,
I think
so,
I think in
yeah.
our day, mate, this would have been just known as an hack and slash game. Once Blades of
Yeah,
Vengeance, hack and slash
Blades
with
of
RPG
yeah,
elements.
yeah, yeah. But it's look, I'm not no criticism here, no judgment here. So if you want to say it's an obscure RPG, and it's something I haven't heard of, and it's a game that's new and fresh, and it has that sort of new homebrew look about it, doesn't it? Where it's like a homebrew developer that have put a lot of eggs in this game and have really pushed it to be the best of its caliber, and it does have a nice finish to it. I like the presentation of this
Yeah,
particular
yeah.
game. Just like obviously Hollow Knight was one of those games that has that vibe too. That's what it reminds me of as well. It's like it has Castlevania or sorry, Hollow Knight vibes. But go on, you were saying?
yeah. One reason why I wanted to really bring this one up is because I really didn't cannot find any alternative to Odin Spear, so that's the reason why I discovered it. And I remember playing this and having a grand time. I played this on the Xbox, it's on the 360, and I still have it installed on my PlayStation 4. I just haven't touched it in a really long while, and I really enjoyed the gameplay so much, but I rarely do hear anyone recommend it either in the Metroidvania sense or in the JRPG sense or anything that would be connected to this particular game. So that's just wanted to really spread word that there's this particular game that I think if this is also always on sale either I know it's available on Steam, available on the PSN. So I just haven't seen it on the Switch. I think maybe if they put it on the Switch, maybe if it's not on the Switch, I'm not sure. I haven't really checked. So maybe if it's not on the Switch, they put it on the Switch. It could gain more traction since more games of the similar visuals or rather similar gameplays are getting more recognition nowadays. Maybe so a little bit sorry if I tried to push this as some alternate for a JRPG, but since Odin is in all of its senses JRPG, so something along those lines.
Yeah, no. I'm going to check it out, mate. I'm getting a new PC in a month or two, so when I get that, I'm gonna get this. I like the look of it.
I
And that's
mean,
it for
you're
my
you,
list.
you have. I mean, you have a variety of equipment. You have a variety of items being used. You're talking to a lot of NPCs. You're
Mm.
fighting monsters. So there are plenty of things. There are plenty of RPG elements here. Just because you're not fighting in a party, just because it's not anime-ish, it's just because it's not turn-based doesn't necessarily mean it's not an RPG.
Mm.
Even Castlevania,
Symphony
Symphony
of
of
the
the
Night.
Night,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of debated whether it's a RPG or just a
Well,
platform, just another platformer.
well, I mean, for
I
me,
mean, you're getting experience here, obviously.
I mean, if you're looking at this particular game, there are adventure elements. You are talking to NPCs, as you mentioned. There are exploration elements. So for me, it's an action adventure game with RPG elements. So it's an action adventure RPG. That's what I'd categorize this game as if I'm being technical about it.
This to me is a what you just brought up playing. What you brought up playing, and you're used to. That's how you class things, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? So, but it looks good, mate. It looks good.
Very good. Top man. Top man. Top selection.
All right, so that's Sir Drew's list.
Very good.
How about we go with Sir Dan?
Mm.
Yeah, right. My list. Right.
Oh, there we go.
let's flag Chrono
There
Trigger
we
off.
go. God, flipping it.
Here we go. Oh, here we go.
Oh, God.
No, we don't look. I think Chrono Trigger is a good game, but the hype it gets is if you go into any forum or to any Facebook RPG group, you will get swarmed with people telling you Chrono Trigger is the best game, probably best game of all time, best RPG of all time, and pretty much definitely the best 16-bit era RPG ever. Well, in my opinion, it's not. In my opinion, that honor belongs to Phantasy Star 4, or at least in the same style of Chrono Trigger. And for me, Phantasy Star 4, obviously a Sega Mega Drive stroke Genesis game made by Sega themselves. And it's the final installment of a 4-piece series, which for one, that makes it stand out to me against all your Final Fantasies and your Chrono Triggers and all that, because when I grew up playing them, I'd go to a Final Fantasy game or whatever, and they wouldn't be connected. Final Fantasy 2 was not connected to 3. 3 was not connected to 4. And the Fantasy Star series are quite connected. They are separate stories in themselves, but there's they're all in the same solar system. There's a connection throughout history, and Fantasy Star 4 ties up the series superbly. And it was also really revolutionary, and that's one of the things that for me gets me with the Chrono Trigger thing, because a lot of people say Chrono Trigger invented macro combos. Well, they were in Phantasy Star 4 first. A lot of people say the Chrono Trigger invented multiple endings. Well, Phantasy Star 3 actually did that before Chrono Trigger. And for me, Phantasy Star 4 is just peak JRPG gaming. It's got absolutely everything from that kind of turn-based setup that you want. The exploration's lovely. The presentation's fantastic. You know, it's the first game I can remember to have all the comic book cutscenes. Like Chrono Trigger, every story section is told by people walking around and just saying dialogue. Whereas this, you've got what we're seeing now. You get actual comic book cutscenes, and that, bear in mind, this came out 2 years before Chrono Trigger. So when I played this, that set the standard. And then I went to games later, like Final Fantasy VI and like Chrono Trigger, and they weren't doing what we're seeing now in front of us with these cutscenes. And I was like, wait a second, how come they were hyped up so much? Because it felt like a big step back to me compared to Phantasy Star 4. But it's fucking fantastically paced. It's got really good combat. Something else that I think lets Chrono Trigger down, because Chrono Trigger is really, really easy and straightforward. I'm not saying it's I'm not saying it's bad combat, but there's a lot of battles you can literally just not look at and keep pressing A. And it's really straightforward. Whereas Phantasy Star 4, you have to keep more of an eye on it, and it's got a few pinch points that test you. And because it wraps up that 4 series arc, to me, it's just an incredible game all around. And what I love about it is you can play this as your first Phantasy Star, and you don't have to have played your first 3. But then when you go back and play your first 3, and then play this, it's an even better game for it. So I think this is an almost perfect JRPG. This one. So I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I beat this game 2 years ago. I beat this game 2 years ago on the Mega Drive Mini because it came preloaded, and I tried to play it on and off in the early 2000s because obviously that's when I started playing it on ROM, and I actually hacked my PlayStation Portable and I put the game on there. I used to carry it with me, and then I never really consistently got past a certain point, and then I thought, okay, the Mega Drive Mini's here. What's the first game I'm going to play? Phantasy Star 4. And I thought, let's do this. It's lockdown. I've got time. Let's play this game. And a few things I want to add to what you've said, Dan, is there's you talk about how Final Fantasy, obviously everyone goes on about how Square were the first to do this, were the first to do that. Well, people go on about how Final Fantasy VII, there was a certain character that died that everyone was heartbroken about. This game did it first. Yeah. This game did it first. And when you talk about, sorry, I didn't want to say the character's name because it's a really spoiler. But when you talk about how the comic scene, what I love about the little comic strips, that you've reached a milestone at that point in the game when you see that comic strip, there's a turning point in that game. You've reached a point, and there's a self of elevation when you get to that point in the game.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
So it's a marvelous piece of storytelling. You go from one planet to another, so you're going off-world, and the game is big. You got Motavia where you start off of, and when you get to a certain point, you get to another point, and then the plot thickens. You're wondering, okay, where's this story going? What's happening now? The story just gets bigger and bigger, and there's a lot to consider, and the stakes are higher. And it is wonderful in terms of the art design, how you can get two. You made an interesting point about the battle system. And it's really cool how you can get 2 characters to sort of interact with each other to create an attack and things like that. And for 1994-95, when this thing was out, that was outstanding. Mm-hmm. And another little known fact about this particular game is Sega were going to release this for the Sega Mega CD. I'm glad they didn't, because obviously not a lot of people would have gone for it. But it would be nice if they made a Mega CD version with a nice CD soundtrack. But this is a really, really good Mega Drive game, and it's one that I think that has been overlooked, because when people think of RPGs, we're talking 16-bit era, everyone just jumps on the Super Nintendo, right? Let's just forget Sega Mega Drive. But this is an outstanding game, and a story the story in it is very near and dear to my heart, since I'm a big fan of science fiction. So probably the best science fiction RPG I've ever played.
There we go. There we go. Well said, mate. Very well said. Just to touch on something else you said then. with the combo system, what I like about this as well that I prefer to Chrono Trigger is that your combos can fail. You have to set it up right and you have to execute it right for the combos to work, and it's so much more satisfying. Do you know what I mean? It's so and it gives it battles such a bigger dynamic because you go in and you're like, well, I'm going to set this up and it should work, but it don't always work. It's based on the player's initiatives, and if an enemy interrupts, can get a turn in before one of the other characters, then your combo don't work, and then it just makes it more fun to me. I'm glad you made that point, mate. But yes, very good points too, Viraj. Like it.
Yeah. And so just to go very quickly back on the characters, how we discussed, there was a game before this where we talk about tongue in cheek and the character interactions. There is a particular part in this game which is quite funny, actually. So there's a bit of humor in there. There's a bit of tension in there. It is a serious game. It is a serious story we're talking about, but there is a bit of humor in there, which is. I
think the humor in this is fantastic. Yeah. That's one of the biggest things for me because it's so well written. It's amazingly written for a 1993 game, and it's some of the humor in it is. It doesn't feel out of place, and I totally agree with that, mate. I totally agree.
All right.
Okay, so
how about you, Sir Drew?
I think I'm the only one who has not played Phantasy Star yet on this group, and one of the reasons is because, as I have stated, I started with Final Fantasy Tactics. So I was about to get into this series because somebody posted, since I'm in Japan, so there's a little it's strict here when it comes to downloading stuff for emulation and all those things. And so most of the games that I have been playing since I have moved here in Japan are ones where I have the physical copy. And one of the people from JRPG Philippines posted about the Sega Ages series that the Volume 32 has full English language support. Now, that was what my mistake, that I didn't clarify which volume has the full English language support. So the first the first Sega Ages Fantasy Star that I saw, just grabbed it, did an impulse buy on it. When I went home, hell no.
It's a shame. It is a shame that happened. Oh well, never mind.
Yeah. Well, actually, and not really, since
if you can still find it, Sega Ages Volume 32. If you can still find one.
And it's the selling. I think the average price for it right now is $150. I think on Mercari, Rakuten, everywhere I've looked. So hopefully I'll see it on one of my hunts for a very decent price. Anyway, I only spent around $10, I think, for the $15. I forgot the right conversion for volume 18. And the artwork's beautiful, so I can't really complain that much, since I'll just put it on the shelf. I could always resell it, but I really don't have any use for it if I eventually find volume 32. So hopefully I get to play the series. Heard so much praise, not only from everyone I know, even YouTubers like Happy Console Gaming could not stop talking about this particular game. So this particular series, really always wanted to get into it. Maybe one of these days I'll get it. I'll finally get that volume 32.
No, fingers crossed, mate. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
All right. This game. Let's do this.
Next game, right? Well, seeing as we've touched on Final Fantasy a few times, Final Fantasy obviously is a strange series to me. A really strange series. It's got some good games, but its evolution's weird. And obviously now it's evolved into a pretty much an action game, really, especially with Final Fantasy 16. It looks like Devil May Cry. And pretty much
that's what the kids want.
That's
what the kids want nowadays.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So my next game is basically what I class personally as the last true Final Fantasy game, and that's Lost Odyssey on the
Oh,
Xbox 360.
yeah.
Oh my.
Because it essentially, I say, made by one of the creators. I forgot his name now. Viraj should correct
Sakaguchi.
me. Go on, Joe.
Sakaguchi.
Aguchi, that's it.
Hironobu Sakaguchi. Hironobu Sakaguchi. Yeah.
Sakaguchi. Right, okay. Sorry, mate. Yeah, he obviously had a huge input into this game, and it is basically a traditional Final Fantasy game. And what he's done is he's taken pretty much all the best bits of the turn-based Final Fantasy games, and pretty much perfected it in Lost Odyssey. And it is just if they'd have made this a Final Fantasy game, it'd have been the best way to have ended that turn-based era for me. But obviously it's its own thing, and because it's its own thing, it feels refreshing. It feels different. There's a lot of actual storytelling depth in this as well. I'm not saying that there's not in Final Fantasy, but Final Fantasy games are about the spectacle, or as much the story. You have the story, but it's about exploring that spectacular world. Whereas Lost Odyssey contains 1,000 Years of Lost Dreams, which is basically the character reminiscing, because he's an immortal character, which you find out very early, so it's not a spoiler. But he basically reminisces on all his memories that he's had over 1,000 years, and it makes this game. It gives the game a lot of substance, gives the game a lot of depth. And it's another game as well with a lot of great humor. Jansen's the comic relief character in it, and he is fantastic. He absolutely makes me howl. He's always trying to get his leg over with other women. He's always acting stupid.
He got the best girl though. He got the best girl.
Well, this is it. Exactly. This is it.
Mad respect to Jansen. Mad respect.
If you got a bit of Ming, everyone loves a bit of Ming, mate. So,
oh gosh, there we go.
So, but yes, it's to me this is a. I won't say it's an underrated game, because a lot of people do know of it and play it, but I think it's. I find, in my opinion, it's the best Final Fantasy game, and I find it. It never gets talked about up in the class. People talk about Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 10, Final Fantasy 6 as best JRPGs ever, and for me, this is better, and should be mentioned alongside them.
Okay, fascinating. All right.
I think
So
one
that's
of
the
the
guy.
reasons why it was a hard sell, since I believe it was released on Xbox 360.
360 exclusive.
Was it the same time as? Was it also released? I think it's exclusive, right?
It's
Yeah,
exclusive.
it's on Steam
So
now.
exclusive to Xbox 360, along with Blue Dragon.
Yep, Blue
Yeah.
I
Dragon,
think
yeah.
the Last Remnant
Same
is
company.
also there.
Yeah.
The Last Remnant, Tales of Vesperia. So
Yeah.
during this time, it was a leg wherein the Xbox trying to get to tap into the JRPG market, and they are releasing this. But the problem is, Xbox 360 is more known for its multiplayer aspects because of we got Halo, we got Gears of War, we got Forza. We're in during that time when you have when you buy a 360, you're not thinking of JRPGs, you're not thinking of the single player experience, you're thinking of getting the multiplayer on, you're thinking of the shooters, the driving, and all of those particular genres. So I think that is one of the reason why it became underrated, under hype. Is just the market was not there. They are not willing to buy a 360 just to play a JRPG during this particular time. So I think that is what held this back. Did was the last story also by Miss Walker? I'm a
Yes.
yeah, okay. So
Yes.
we're in there we have it. The last story, same
We
the
exclusive.
yeah, we exclusive, but at the same time it was released on the last lifeline of the Wii, wherein everybody was moving towards the next generation. So same fate. So I think that is one of the reasons is there are just not that many people who experience this game. So maybe that is why it has become what it is. And also um the main character design, I believe, is one of those things that might have made people not get into this. I'm not crapping on. I'm not really crapping. It's just that he's not the regular either super pretty boy or super ragged
Yeah.
protagonist. Really, it's like he's like an egg with a wig. I'm sorry if that's scrapping on it too much, but he's not that aesthetically pleasing to look at. That came from a bald guy, anyway. So yeah, that's my take on why the Lost
There's a
Odyssey.
reason for that actually.
Yeah. Anyway, that I think that's my opinion on why it didn't get the recognition that it should have had.
Yeah,
Um,
I think they're great points. Great points, mate.
I remember selling this game actually from looking at the cover art of it and looking at it, and that didn't go to clearance. That did actually sell out in my shop, to be fair. But I agree with the point raised earlier. When you want back in those days when that sixth was it seventh generation was emerging, shall we say? The PS3 was always seen as like the single player console for JRPG, shall we say? But it did have everything on it. But then you had like the Xbox 360, which was more for online gaming predominantly. And it's like you said, games like Gears of War, Halo. That's what you associate the Xbox 360 with. And then you had the Wii, which is something else. So yeah, I would say that predominantly the PS3 for that era was something that people. Well, Sony as a brand, PlayStation as a brand is something that you'd associate RPG gaming with, not necessarily the Microsoft Xbox. So it's probably what probably hurt the game is that it was exclusive to a format which was
Yeah,
trying something new. It wanted to be. It's obviously not something. It's not. It's not something that is. You think of RPG gaming when you think of the Xbox because obviously it's an American company, isn't it? And
Yeah.
when you think of RPGs, you think of Japanese, Japan. You think of Nintendo, Japan, Sony of Japan. You don't think that these Japanese companies would go on the Microsoft Xbox. But then saying that, they put Final Fantasy 12 on the Xbox 360 as well. So it was one of those things. But predominantly RPG gamers, they're PlayStation people. But look, that being said, again, it's an unsung hero because it was on a system that we didn't. Well, a lot of people would go for this game, but I remember selling out of this game in my shop, but I didn't really know much about it. It just left the shelves like a couple of weeks after it was released, and I never got any more in stock.
Cool.
So there you go.
Nice.
This was a weird time during that era. It was noted that when Sakaguchi left Square after after Final Fantasy Spirits Within bomb
Mm,
in the box office, so he
mm,
left and created Mistwalker. So Xbox 360 was trying to get a foothold on Japan, and one of their strategies is trying to get more Japanese developers in to have exclusives coming out for the 360, and they were able to convince Sakaguchi, Mistwalker, his company. Uh, they were able to land two exclusives. And that was Blue Dragon and your Lost Odyssey. And you would think Sakaguchi, then basically this should be a PlayStation. This should be a PlayStation release if it's an RPG. And around this time, when the industry was jumping to the HDMI era, uh, there were personal frictions between Sakaguchi and Ken Kutaragi of PlayStation. He did not like Kutaragi at all.
mm, mm.
and he thought that the architecture for the PlayStation 3 was quite dodgy at best. That
Mm,
it may be a little bit difficult for them to come up with a decent game. His vision for Lost Odyssey, if they're going to come up with the game on the PlayStation 3, so they took the offer from Microsoft, and they mostly financed this game. So they gained the exclusivity for Lost Odyssey. In terms of the character designs, Sakaguchi said that he did not want his characters to look like any culture, any denomination, any racial stereotypes whatsoever. This includes anime-ish
mm,
tropes, anime-ish designs. So the character design is like this. He also he also employed a light novel, a light novelist, to come up with the Thousand Dreams, Sir Dan. So that's
mm,
why you have these excerpts every now and then. Every time Kaim, the main character, uh, goes into his dream state, remembering these dreams that was basically reminiscing his old days back a few years back, because he's basically an immortal, and he's not. And about this game, he's not the only immortal in this game. There are one, two, three, I think four of them,
Spoilers.
and Kaim here is the only one who has this. And for me, when I play this game, I'm like, okay, this adds more dimension to Kaim, to the main character. But there are there are other immortals in your party. Where are their dream sequence?
mm.
You know what I mean? I mean, the you're not really fleshing out some of your characters as well. Um, I don't want to spoil it too much, but some of the characters can come up a little bit 2D, very two dimensional in terms of their personality and backstories. Kaim gets more screen time here, especially with this light novel presentation of his backstory and all that. But in terms of gameplay, oh, definitely. If you are a fan of Final Fantasy X, before they jump to 11 and 12, this and Sir Dan's right. This would be the last Final Fantasy turn based combat system. In terms of skills, they I think they even used the materia system here. You're collecting special
It's
gems, right? What do
it's
you call that?
rings,
Right?
bracelets, and that. And so,
You put all of those in your on your special bracelets to come up with additional skills, additional attributes, special abilities. So very reminiscent of Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy X in those regards. So yeah, there's also a lot of side questing, optional bosses here as well. Um, Storytelling quite a little bit jarring, a little bit convoluted if you really are paying attention to the story. But hey, this is not this I will not recommend this to a beginner.
Okay.
Maybe for an intermediate RPG player, maybe, but for a beginner, this may be too much.
fair enough, mate.
Okay. I'd probably have to say I wouldn't recommend Fantasy Star 4 to a beginner either, to be honest.
To a beginner. So
I wouldn't. No, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, like if you
Yeah,
look at
yeah, yeah,
look, if
definitely.
you look at like the look. So I know we're backtracking on the game before this, but Fantasy Star as a series is an intermediary RPG. I would say intermediary to hard RPG, especially the first one. I'd say first Fantasy Star was very difficult to get into. There's a lot of grinding before you get into it. But I will say that if you've played Final Fantasy and you've enjoyed it, now come and join us with the big boys and play Fantasy Star, because that's That you've had the training wheels on your bike now. Take the training wheels off and now ride the bike with Fantasy Star. That's what I'm going to say. That's my analogy.
I mean, don't let the 16-bit graphics fool you. The story can be pretty dark.
Yeah,
very mature.
Yeah.
This game and Fantasy Star 4.
And you love
Next
your
game,
dark.
Mr. Dan.
You love your darkness, Dan. You love your darkness. But go on.
Well, there's not. Yeah, funnily enough. Well, if we're talking slightly more intermediate, shall we say, RPGs, then we've already talked about the Fire Emblem series. I've not actually played that much of the Fire Emblem series. I've flirted with it a little bit, done a few bits here and there, but I've not really got my teeth into one.
Start with the GBA one, the first GBA Fire Emblem that was released to the West. That's always a good starting point, I would say.
Right. Well, I'm going through that library when I finish with 16-bit, so I'll be on that, mate. I'll be on that.
Okay. They're a lot of fun. They are a lot of fun, I'll say.
Well, I mean, what I've played on them were all right, but the one series which gets far less recognition that I think's an awesome series, and I'm going to pick my favourite entry, which is the first entry from it, and that's the Langrisser series. And the
Langrisser.
The
War
first
Song.
Exactly.
Song.
That's the Genesis. So it's called War Song on the Genesis, and it's also I think it came included on the Mega Drive Mini 2, didn't it?
It did, mate.
You can play that game there, but it's known as Langrisser in Japan, and there was a sequel called Langrisser 2. Sadly, War Song didn't do well in the West, so Langrisser 2 stayed in Japan. Yeah. But there's an English translation patch if you're playing Langrisser 2.
Spot on. I've finished both on them many times over. I really like Langrisser 2. I think it's a great game, but it doesn't have permadeath, whereas War Song has permadeath. And for me, the story is cliche, basic. You're an hero, get a sword, kill a big bad thing. Story's not even really worth taking note of, really. But the actual battles are absolutely fantastic, fantastic, and it's got such a beautifully balanced difficulty in this game. It really has. And the way that everything ties in mechanically with regards to where your troops are positions in relations to their generals, and the way you can evolve your troops through different careers and balance your team out, and the fact that you've got permadeath in there means it's a really nice... When I say challenging, it's not brutal, but you have to think. You know what I mean? You've got to be on your game to progress with this. And each map usually holds a special surprise. You know what I mean? There's normally something. If you look at a map and say, right, I'm going to set my soldiers out in this certain way with this game plan in mind, usually something will shake that game plan up along the way. So for me, this is, if you're a strategy RPG fan like Drew is, for me, this is a fantastic strategy RPG to get your teeth into. It really is. There's a lot more to it than you just looking at it. You think it looks really simple and basic. There's a lot more to it. It's great stuff.
Yeah. So very nice. I mean, I've given this game a go, but then I just said no. That's me, but no. It does involve a lot of time and patience because there's a lot to analyze and you need to focus a lot. It's not as easy as Fire Emblem in that regard. Fire Emblem is easier to play. This is okay. It's like a game of chess. This particular game, you're looking at what can he do? What can he do? What's his strengths? What's his weaknesses? And there's a lot more to it than just So that's why I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to literally sit there and take my time with this particular one.
The first time I played this, it took me 7 attempts to beat the first battle.
Yeah, I knew that was going to happen with me as well. So I thought, no, I'm going to wait for a bit, and then, okay.
It took me. I think it's because you approach it. A lot of strategy RPGs, you approach to kill everything, to maximize your experience points gain, and if you do that all the time with this, especially that first battle, you're gonna get wiped out. So
there's another game similar to this. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's on Sega CD. It's called Dark Wizard.
Dark Wizard. So
that's a very interesting game as well. That's comes. It has the same genetic, but it has more depth than even this, I would say.
Yeah.
And I gave it a go, and I was like, I'm getting my ass handed to me here. This game is punishing me. This is an expert tactical RPG game.
Yeah,
I'm going to cry if I finish this, if I try to do this. So it is seriously. Dark Wizard is one mother of a game. Sadly, it's only on Sega CD, which is hard to get your hands on these days. But it shares the same genetic material as this. I can see. But very good suggestion. This particular game. I just wanted to mention Dark Wizard because that's a good one.
And definitely. And if you're going to play it, Joe's just put. Have you got the PlayStation 4 version? Is it Joe?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Batman.
Right here.
Yeah.
So that's a lot easier. That is like that's a if you're getting your arse handed to you on the proper version, give that a go instead because that's a nice easy.
Hey, listen, I'm not saying I don't mind having my arse handed to me. I'll play it. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a baby, yeah. Okay,
I'll take a
beating.
In general terms, not you in particular, mate. Just people in general. If people in general are struggling to get into Warsong on the Sega Genesis, then there's always this option too. But this is really I can't play this. It's
got some nice. To be honest, it's easier on the eyes. I'll give it that much, and it would be on a PS2. It's not PS4.
Seriously, that's easy in the eyes right there. That's so easy in the eyes right there. I mean, look at that. Definitely so easy in the eyes.
I can see.
So I'm just gonna pause it right here.
Okay.
To the point. So
Thank you
for
very
all
much,
of you guys who really want to play Landgriser, you can just check out the PlayStation 4 version. Trust me, you're gonna enjoy it more rather than looking at the 16-bit sprites on the Mega Drive. All right.
Hey, some of the 16-bit sprites look good.
Let me just make clear how because I've not played. I'm assuming it's the same version because I've played it on Steam, not PlayStation 4. So I'm assuming the Steam version is the same as the PlayStation 4 version.
Oh yeah,
but it is
visually.
It's way too easy. It is literally. It's not the same game. It's worth playing if you want just a relaxing strategy RPG just to forget about. But it's so. I find it fucking boring.
All right. So the PlayStation 4 version has two, as we saw in that picture, two very big reasons.
Two very good
why
reasons.
Two big reasons.
Again, another reason would be yes, it's easy. Obviously, aesthetically, it's got a nice way to navigate through it, whatever, than the 16-bit version, and it is an easier game, as Dan says. But it's something to be mindful of. But if we're talking about accessibility, it's obviously easier to play the Mega Drive games for obvious reasons.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, if this is if you guys are into like war games scenario, like battles, this is one of them. Landgriser. Whether you play the original or the remake. I think another one would be Ireland. Ireland. What's that? What's that one? Arslan story. I'm blanking out.
The anime.
Don't do it with the anime.
The one with it's Arslan. And also, I'd say
Arslan,
there's also a game that paid homage to Landgriser, titled Warsong. Was it Warsong? Something like
that?
That's Warsong.
There's an indie game, right?
Warsong's the one I'm talking about. That was the the American release. Was retitled
That's Warsong. In Japan's Landgriser too. Yeah.
So anyway, if you want to see me and Dan's head as the sole reason for you getting Landgriser, go ahead.
Goodness
just see me and Dan. That
yours is
heads like.
Well, yours is more pigment tan to it, which is nicer to look at. That needs a tan, as far as I'm concerned.
I'll tan. Don't worry. When sun's out, I'll tan.
Yeah, but none of this fake orange tan, which all these Essex.
No, I'm half Italian, mate. I'll be darker than you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, mate. It's ridiculous how brown I go in summer.
Oh, okay. All right. So, any more games, Dan? Or are we done with your list?
Couple more, mate. Let's get a Western RPG in there because they've all been Japanese RPGs.
You're in love with that woman, aren't you, Joe? You love that woman.
If there's guys, I mean,
I
what
mean-
are you waiting for? Come on,
Well,
she's waiting for you right there.
Yeah, but there's there's a Lady Palutena from the Kid Icarus. She's quite a. Well, we're turning this into something it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
The same as that one.
She reminds me of Lady
Or-
I
Palutena.
mean, where is the 16-bit version of this? I'm very
I
much
don't-
curious.
Right. Well,
That's a
Google-
mission.
More research
Mission
Google-
accepted.
Google is the key.
Google Divine Seal.
Anyway,
Di-
all right.
Joe,
All right.
Joe, Google Divine Sealing, and you will get the 16.
No, oh no! Don't do that! Don't do that! Don't do that here, man, because it's not safe.
He's not going to
do
put it up. He's not
Oh,
going to
don't
put it
put it
up.
up. Okay. I actually I was asked to. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna talk about divine sealing. That's like the It's,
Yeah.
Divine
Anyway.
feeling.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
it's a
That's
shoot 'em
a
up.
16-bit
With
version.
cutscenes. It's a shoot 'em up, and when you finish a stage, you're rewarded with
Hello.
you're rewarded with
Holy shit, son. Okay, I see you.
We
All
didn't, mess
right.
about, we didn't mess about in our day, mate.
Unfortunately,
All right.
just lost
God.
Joe.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Oh, goodness me.
Give me 5 minutes, guys.
Joe is having technical issues.
Oh dear, divine sealing. Oh dear.
Now, go on ahead, guys. Go on ahead.
Oh, that was
Right.
quick. That was
Next
quick.
game,
We
next
got
game.
it- we
Let's
got
get
it
to
out
the
of
next
you.
game then.
That's
Let's get to the
good.
next
All right.
game.
I'm just saving this for later.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Okay, so it's in the
I'm
bank.
saving that tab for later. All right.
It's in the bank. All right.
Next game.
moving
Next
on.
game.
Let's get
Next
down
game.
to it.
Next game. Right. A lot of people are aware of the Mass Effect series.
Ass Effect.
Mass Effect, yeah. Everybody.
1, 2, 3. Andromeda. Do we count Andromeda?
Well, yeah, part of the series, even though it's crap.
Yvonne Strahovski, Miranda.
Yeah, if you read most people's or most journalists' best RPGs ever, they tend to put Mass Effect 2 in there, which baffles me because I think the first game's 1,000 times better. But regardless, if you're after a great alternative to the Mass Effect series, I'd recommend the Technomancer, which you can get on Steam and PlayStation 4, which is essentially Mass Effect on Mars. Basically, it's a BioWare style action RPG based around all your typical sci-fi tropes. It's got a little bit of Star Wars in there. It's got kind of like a bit of a religious meets science fiction element to it.
What's the title, Sir Dan?
The Techno?
Technomaster.
Yeah,
It's the Technomancer,
Like
don't it?
tech-
The
Technomancer.
the Technomancer duck.
Oh God.
So,
Alrighty.
and it's basically it's not as polished as Mass Effect. It's not as cohesive as Mass Effect, but it's a lot of fun. It's a hell of a lot of fun. And I prefer Mass Effect 1 is my favorite, but Mass Effect 2, I prefer the Technomancer to Mass Effect 2. The Mass Effect 2 is just a shooter to me. It's not really got much RPG depth to it, where the Technomancer's got a lot more to it, and it's got a lot more exploratory freedom to it as well.
All right. Very good.
I haven't seen this one.
Can you get it up?
Yeah, I got it. There you go.
I mean, it's mature, so it might be a bit too old for you, Sir Joe.
It might be too old for me. Yeah.
But then again, you're talking to a man
Okay.
who's scared of blood and headshots, so I can't say anything.
See, this is what I mean.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
talking exploration. Look at this compared to Mass Effect 2. I mean, you look at a map in Mass Effect 2, it's got a teeny tiny area. You look at the Technomancer, it's got a hell of a lot more to explore in it. And it's not super deep. There's not loads of hidden things in that, but it feels like more of a fleshed out world. And you know, it to me, it's way more of an RPG than Mass Effect 2. And
Does this play like Alpha Protocol or something along those lines?
Alpha Protocol, I'd say no, not. It's got similarities, mate, but it's more of I'd say it's more Mass Effect. Really, I'm trying to think of. another game which plays exactly the same, but I can't. I mean, it's more like it's a Western RPG, you know.
Yeah.
Like it
Dragon
would,
Age, like
but not.
I see it now.
But it's skill based. You know what I mean? It's you see in close combat here because the style is picked is a close combat style. But one of your styles here has got a ranged combat. So it's and this is primarily melee based, to be fair. So I'm comparing it to Mass Effect, but it is the combat is more stuff like Divinity 2 and more
more KOTOR like, more Knights of the
That's of the Old Republic.
It's not.
Knights of the Old Republic.
It looks like that, but it's skill based. Whereas KOTOR's decision based,
Luck based.
yeah, decision based. This is skill based.
All right. Well,
This looks good.
It's a fantastic. It's ropey. It's rough around the edges, and it's not nowhere near as polished as your AAA games. But it's fantastic.
Is this exclusive to the PC?
No, it's
PlayStation 4
and Xbox One.
Is that Xbox One too? Is it all right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think about this, Sir Joe? I mean, we haven't got. I mean, the characters for a start are wearing too many clothes for your liking. I can see that. That's a problem for you, but
Too much clothes.
I mean, this particular is quite. I mean, is it just because it's quite dark? Can you see more than this? I mean, it's quite a dark setting. I mean, obviously,
this is a bad video. This is a
bad video. Okay,
yeah, I can't. There's a lot.
Yeah.
It's actually a really vibrant, and a lot of it takes place. Sort of like
in the dark.
Mars, so
I'll choose another gameplay. But that being said, can you shift into first-person view? Because if I remember correctly, in Mass Effect, there's also first-person shooting, but you can also shift into third-person as well.
No, this is third person, mate. This is a bit more.
Right.
You can see a little bit more.
Light. Yeah, you got more lighting.
A little bit more sunlight there.
He's got his glasses on.
I would say
that's a bit of a dark video, anyway. That
it's still quite dark. Yeah, I would say there's too many guys in here. Not enough girls.
Yeah.
Not enough girls to keep me what's the politically correct term for this?
Entertained.
Entertained. To keep me glued. How about that?
I'm guessing you didn't like Final Fantasy 15, Sergio.
I like the gas girl.
this has got more girls in than Final Fantasy 15, and you can romance them too.
Oh right, okay.
So, they're just not in these clips at the minute.
Oh well.
Sir Josh is having a laugh at you guys.
Well, this is why we do these streams, for fun. You know, it's a laugh riot. But having female protagonists or antagonists in video games is fun. You don't want to have it. You want to have a nice balance, and female characters have a certain depth to them in terms of their personalities, part of the plot. It's interesting, and it's nice to have a bit of romance in these sort of games. It's nice. That's all I'm trying to say. Not necessarily romance.
There you go.
You know, but it's pretty cool.
There you go.
Okay, so this is what we could class. This is what we could class as an action RPG, because
yeah.
This is what it is. It's definitely a very dynamic looking game. You know, I mean, one of the things that can get a bit dry with the whole turn-based system is like, okay, come on, let's get going. You know, when you get into random battles, etc. This is very, very interesting, and obviously you got to talk to this guy and stuff like that, and you got a lot more to explore. And it looks like quite a big world that you're exploring, from my impression looking at this. What's the story like? That's the question, Dan.
Brilliant, mate. Brilliant. It's a bit. I say it's cliched. It's just it's got that element of religion to it. That's all I'm going to say. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's got that. I don't want to go into spoilers with it, but it's got that. You know, you know, you kind of know how these things pans out. But yeah, it's good. It's good. It is only it's a side serve into the action and the world, so it's not a super deep or elaborate story, but it's good. It serves its purpose and it's good.
All right, cool.
Sweet.
Next game.
Last one for me. So, Secret of Mana, another highly acclaimed game that everybody worships. Another game that I'm not that keen on. I think it's okay. I don't think it's particularly stunning. And one of the reasons I don't think it's that stunning is because I played it after playing a game called Beyond Oasis,
Okay.
which is also known as Story of Thor. And that, again, is on the Sega Mega Drive. And for me, it's 1,000 times better than Secret of Mana. It's Secret of Mana is a charming game, a very nice game, but it doesn't really have any like puzzle or thought-based interaction.
I mean, it's a lot of fun on multiplayer because you can play with 2 players
this
in
is
there,
true.
three players in there. So, but I played Beyond Oasis. Came with the first Mega Drive Mini. Is it really an RPG? Is it not an adventure game? Where's the RPG elements in that particular game?
If Secret of Mana is an RPG, Beyond Oasis is an RPG. That's what I'm saying. Because where's the RPG elements in Secret of Mana? You know what I mean?
You got the level up systems in there. You got to level up when you attack the guys. You get points when you attack the bad guys. I don't really see that in Beyond Oasis.
No, but you level up via collecting items and that, don't you?
Right. Okay.
A different way of doing it.
Okay.
So it's it's for me. It's just a more, what's the word? It's a more fleshed out game than Secret of Mana. I can see why people like Secret of Mana because it's an easy going game. But Beyond Oasis, what sets this apart for me is the combat. Because essentially, you've got a lot of beat 'em up elements in this. You know what I mean? You can use special moves like you can in a like Street Fighter 2 or in Streets of Rage. And it makes for a lot more dynamic, a lot more interesting combat. When you've got a game like Secret of Mana or Beyond Oasis that is a lot of combat, I'd sooner play something that's more dynamic rather than the Secret of Mana's kind of wait to charge up, hit something. And this has got a lot more puzzles in it as well, which I think is fantastic.
I would agree with you in the sense that when I play Secret of Mana and I look at the graphics, I think, okay, it's on a 16-bit platform, but it plays like an 8-bit game.
Yeah.
Whereas with Beyond Oasis, this is a true 16-bit experience, in my opinion. Again, another thing I'd like to add is the soundtrack to both games is actually quite nice. The one with Beyond Oasis is an interesting soundtrack because Yuzo Koshiro of Streets of Rage 2 fame did the soundtrack for this particular game, which is very interesting. And yes, this particular game, the way it plays is the story develops again. It's got a very good storytelling narrative about it. So yeah, I liked Beyond Oasis. Well, the story of Thor for us in Europe, because it had a different name for us, didn't it?
Yeah.
And in Japan, it's called the story of Thor. It's only in America that they had Beyond Oasis, but I think I would call it Beyond Oasis because it's actually a better name for the game.
Yeah. That's why I pretty much refer to it like that, mate. So I think this is one that everyone who likes that type of style of game should check out for sure.
Yeah.
To me, this looks a lot like the same vein as Alundra.
I was going to say the same thing.
Alundra, I've played this one.
The first one, anyway.
Played. So based on what I'm seeing right now, this is my cup of tea, and I like the style of this, but I'll try to get the Sega Minis to be able to play this one. Really like the recommendation for this, Dan.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Thanks.
It is. I would say that the Sega Mega Drive Mini, both of them are great for what they have. I mean, you have the entire Shining Force series spread across 2 of those mini systems. You got Phantasy Star 4 and 2, probably the better ones on that particular system, and this is actually a really good game as well. So, and that came with the first mini, so definitely one that you should check out.
But by the way, do any of you guys know if the Japanese version has full English language support? I know I should be the one who knows this, but just a random question.
Are you talking? Yeah, in essence. So what you could do, because I own a Japanese Mega Drive Mini. So if the game was exclusive in Japan, no. If it was if they offer the story of Thor, what you do is you go to the language settings of your Mega Drive Mini, and when you change it to English instead of Japanese, you'll find the Beyond Oasis ROM on there as well. So you'll actually
cool.
get both. You have both ROMs, and that's the beautiful aspect of it. So if the story's thought is included on the Mega Drive Mini in Japan, you'll find
It
Beyond
should.
Oasis.
Yeah.
It will do. You'll find Beyond Oasis in it when you change the language to English. But if that particular game was an exclusive in Japan, so for example, Langrisser 2's on the Mega Drive Mini, I believe, you'll only ever get the Japanese text of that game because it was never had a PAL or NTSC USA release. So yes, one of the wonderful things about the Mega Drive Mini is if you change the Japanese language to English, you'll get the English ROMs. If that makes sense.
Okay, cool. I'll definitely be going into the. As of this moment, I only have the Neo Geo as far as legacy systems go. So you guys have just given me a reason to further
To get the win.
further hurt my budgets. So
Wait, so where is this? It's actually. Let me put it this way: you're buying an asset. You're buying an asset,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
with the mini consoles, you're only going to get your money back if you want to sell it on because they're so collectible now. In fact, they go up in price.
I'll say this to you, Drew. I'll say this to you, mate. I've spent the past few years playing through the entire 16-bit library of the Super Nintendo and the Sega Mega Drive, and I've done about 500 games now. And out of the two libraries, everybody raves on about the Super Nintendo, and I think it's got some really good games, some very good games. All my favourite JRPGs and RPGs from that era are on the Sega Mega Drive, mate. So you I'm not saying that there's not some good ones on there, but honestly, if you invest in those minis, you'll get your value for money as far as RPGs is concerned, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's 50-50 to be fair. But you're gone.
yeah, and the only reason why I got the Neo Geo is that is one of the things that if you collect for, you're really not gonna be able to collect all of the games for that system unless you want to break your bank. So that is the reason why I got the
The Neo Geo
Neo
Mini, did you?
Legacy. So this is gonna be the same vein for me for the Sega Mega Drive, the Mega Drive system, since every game on this particular legacy system is already on a price value that or rather I think I cannot and won't be able to afford it. So looking just you guys are just giving me more and more reasons to shell out for the mini Mega Drive.
Yeah,
And yeah,
I mean, I'm a collector of minis, and I have all of them. And this isn't my Sega bias talking here. I think in terms of value for money and bang for your buck, you get more with the Sega Mega Drive Mini, and also the Mega Drive Mini 2 or Genesis Mini 2, whatever you want to call it. It's as simple as that, and that's as much as I want to say on the matter.
by the
And
way,
if you
do I need to make it like the meme, the tower ish thing to be able to play all of
No,
the games?
I've done it. I've done it. I'll show you my little display. Actually, I've got it up here, my little cabinet.
There we go.
There we go. So look, we've got it here. Look, this my little. Can you see it? I don't know. I'm flipping it around there.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
okay.
So let me open it because the reflection's there, isn't there? So that's my Mega Drive Mini 1 with the. Obviously, I bought the plastics because I wanted them on there. Oops, I knocked something over. But that's
So
the
that's
Master System
entirely-
adapter, and that's it. That's aesthetic. It's cosmetic.
Oh,
that's all
okay,
it is.
okay. Copy.
You don't need it, mate. You don't need all that, mate.
You don't need all that.
That-
I mean,
that-
Doesn't do anything.
it doesn't do anything, but that's
Okay,
my
glad-
Asia
glad
region
to
mod
hear
Mega
that.
Drive Mini. The only mechanical thing is this thing here. This is just an aesthetic as well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
oh, I'm not
That's all
yeah.
here.
So anyway, that's
Just
my
need that
display
that
there.
fits in the palm of your hand.
Yes,
Yeah.
tiny. Well, it depends how big your hand is, but yeah. But yeah, I love the Mega
I
Drive
think
Minis.
me and Dansan's gonna be a little bit the same. So it's gonna be like here.
Yeah, that's the model
Tiny.
2, isn't it?
It's
Yeah.
gonna be like here.
That's
Tiny.
tiny.
It's
Yeah,
very
that's,
small.
So that's my games then, chaps. That's it.
very good.
Boom.
That's very good. Very good. Very good list of games. All right. So does that leave me then? You know, right at the end.
Yes.
Oh, before we go with Sir Viraj, we've also got 5 games coming from Sir Robert Bertumen of Pinoy Retro Gaming,
Ooh.
and he also listed the 5 games which we have it right here. So maybe we can just toss in our thoughts on his selection right about here. So he has right there Nino Kuni.
Welcome to my world, Holly boy.
I actually
Rated game.
like this more than the second one.
I do. I've only
Oh,
played. I've only played the second at a good length. I played this a little bit, and this were all right. But the second one I couldn't get into at all.
The White Witch.
so he says it's a very nice entry for beginners
It
due
looks
to
like
its
you're
fairy
playing.
tale presentation. Yeah.
Yes. To
Next
give
is
the
Tokyo
aesthetic
Xanadu.
and,
So who plays Xanadu?
Never played Xanadu.
I
So,
haven't.
so it says here, great JRPG with action gameplay, same as Persona series with student life aspects, but with other personalities in different locations. So it's very reminiscent of Persona, Trails games, and East. And then, of course, you got your hyperdimension Neptunia. If you love RPGs with anime vibes, you should play this. Good gameplay with interesting characters with comedic aspects. Oh, that's what he calls interesting characters, of course.
Actually, the problem with the Hyperdimension Neptunia series is that there is so many games. In regards to that series, there's so many collaborations, and you could not really differentiate it with just the titles alone.
Wild on. I've
And
never played. I've
Wild
always wanted to
Arms.
play this. Never played it.
Underrated
That's
JRPG with good gameplay and story. I love the challenge of solving
true.
puzzles and a lot of optional bosses in its series. I can't wait for the successor, Arms Fantasia.
Nice. Always wanted to play
Uh,
it. Never played it. I need to get around to that one.
one of the harder JRPG, especially the first two Wild Arms.
Sounds good.
And then the Monster Hunter stories, not as popular as the main Monster Hunter franchise. Interesting characters, story, and good gameplay. Like the original, you can tame monsters and use them in battle. This is for the 3DS.
Yeah, and it's also available on officially on the iOS and Android. I have it on my phone.
What do you think to it, Drew?
Um, I intro voice it. When I say intro voice, I played the intro
Just the
then
intro.
dropped it.
Right. Yeah.
Like for the first 2 hours of
Yeah,
the game,
first
then
2 hours,
that's it.
then I dropped it. So that's
Right.
my opinion on it.
So that was his 5 games.
Mm.
Ni no Kuni, uh, Wrath of the White Witch. You got your Hyperdimension Neptunia, Tokyo Xanadu, your Monster Hunter
Well done.
stories, and Wild Arms. So among those 5 games that he mentioned, what stood out to you guys?
I've always
For
wanted to play
me,
Wild Arms. Never
yeah,
played it.
Wild
But I
Arms.
always wanted to play it.
um,
Not even the
No,
first 1 and 2,
no,
PlayStation 1, really?
no.
Oh.
Just one of them things totally passed me by. I fully intend
Hmm.
on playing it, but be a while yet. But yeah, I'm definitely going to get them tucked in.
if if you're gonna start with Wild Arms, go with the PlayStation 2 version, Wild Arms
The remake,
Altered Code F. Much more polished than the classic
the
one,
original.
and also the second one gave me nightmares because of the world map, wherein you could not just go and look for the look. You just could not just go to the location. You need to scan for the location before it
Mm.
appears on the world map. So a little bit
Oh yeah.
frustrating, but
Right.
Oh yeah.
at the same
I don't know
time,
why they did like that. I
yeah,
mean, why do you have to press why do you have to press square on a very specific
yes.
location before the town comes up in the world map?
Makes no
So
sense.
so
It's
frustrating.
such a weird.
It's an enjoyable game. I like the combat of it. I like the senpai aspect. You know, the transforming aspect of one of the characters. Such a cool thing,
Oh
and
yeah.
I really like the gameplay. It's just that the world map sucks. The life out of you.
Right.
So that
To be honest,
You
mate,
are going to end
I've heard more good things about the first one, similar to what you're saying. So I appreciate the recommendation about that PlayStation 2 one, and that's where I'll start instead, then, mate. So thanks for that.
yeah.
All right, cool.
How about Sir
Um,
Viraj? Out of the five,
I like the first game. I can't remember the name. It looked like it was made for children,
Nino
but I like
Kuni?
it.
You know,
Yeah,
Oh,
I like
Nino
it.
Nino
Kuni.
Kuni.
You got it. Show me
Yeah.
what you got. I want to have a look at the picture.
It's this one.
It looks very cute.
So
Man.
Originally, in that game originally came out for the DS before it was ported for the PlayStation 3.
yeah.
Hmm. It's got a nice
Originally for
presentation.
the DS. Yeah.
It's got a nice presentation, and
Wait, I'll get the DS.
oh my gosh,
So it
yeah.
was. So the game is very chill.
It's this one.
Not very teeny, but very childlike. They tried to present it like more of a
Yeah.
fairy tale storytelling, and then a game battle system wise is still turn based,
I like the battle
and
system that I saw from the
mm,
presentation, so it looks really interesting. I think it's got more than meets the eye. I know it looks like it's obviously got very cutesy characters and it's got a cutesy presentation, but I like to think that there's a lot more depth to what I can see. So that's why I was interested in that game, and I love the way that the presentation was with that
and,
game.
and, and that being said, Sir Viraj, it's not that violent in comparison with other JRPG. In comparison with other RPGs, it's not as
Mm,
violent. I mean, sure, your character will just
mm.
hit the animals with a stick or something, but
Yeah, yeah.
that's
Okay.
the
Magic
real
from the
that's the
one.
benefit.
It's since it's level 5 game made by the same animated by the same folks who made the Studio Ghibli movies. If you like
Yeah,
those movies,
yeah. It
like
had
that
that feel to
aesthetic,
it. Yeah.
and you like Pokemon, Digimon ish collecting
Okay.
of creatures, so definitely go try it out.
Okay. All right. Cool.
My out of all of the five, I would say I was going to say Neptunia, but hey, I like the Neptunia series for other reasons. But I would say Tokyo Xanadu, out of the five that was mentioned, out of all of the reviews that came out, they say it is a mixture of all of the Falcom games. It's a mixture of Legend of Heroes. So in terms of storytelling and social interactions, it plays like is eight in terms of
So,
combat system, and there are a lot of Easter eggs that references other East games, Nihon Falcom games. So this game was made by Nihon Falcom,
mm.
same
Developers
developers
of
that
East.
made
Yeah.
East and The Legend of Heroes. So I mean, looking at the gameplay, the first thing that you'll think, oh, this is basically Trails of Cold Steel. But another nitpick that other players say is that the game can be quite slow because you need to talk to all of the NPCs. And if you're
Mm,
not really into talking to NPCs that much, if you're playing role playing games,
mm,
then yeah, this will consume a lot of your time because
mm.
there are certain aspects of the game that can only progress if you talk to specific NPCs, and the more you talk to them, it affects your it affects your attributes, and it also affects how many skills you're gonna get, the magic you're gonna get, and the kind of ending that you're going to get. So they went too overboard with this game, if I say so myself.
Mm.
Not in terms of world building, it's not as vast as Trails of Cold. No, it's not as vast as The Legend of Heroes because it just focus on one prefecture of Tokyo. That's it.
Mm.
But but that being said, when you're going from one location to another, it still feels like an actual town. It's not more than a town, but it feels really like a city, isolated city. But it's not like it's just it's just it's a single frame. No, if it kind of plays like Akiba Strip. It's just that vast. if you guys are familiar with Akiba Strip.
Cool, cool, cool,
Hmm.
cool.
So let's go with Sir Viraj this time.
All right, so I mentioned it at the start of this video. So let's start with this Game Boy Advance game. That was an unsung hero for me, and I discovered the ROM first before I actually bought the actual cart. That's how much I love the game, and it's called Sigma Star Saga, and it's a game created by a developer known as Way Forward. Now, Way Forward are responsible for the Shantae series, and they've also recently on the Nintendo Switch, you've seen River City Girls. So they've been working with Technos Japan with that franchise, and they've been really good on the Switch. But they're beat 'em ups, and Shantae's more kind of like an adventure Metroidvania. What is Sigma Star Saga? Well, it's an action RPG, and it tells the story about. I mean, you start off with this game. When you're playing this game, you think, "Oh, is this a shoot 'em up?" Because you start off with a little ship, and there's an alien invasion on Earth, and you got to defend the planet. You think, "Okay, fine." And we get through the first level, and then suddenly, once you pass the first level, there's a top-down bit, and you're walking around with your character, who's a captain known as Wrecker, or a lieutenant known as Wrecker for the Earth Defense Force, whatever they're called. It's the Sigma Team. And he then has a meeting with his commander saying, "Oh, the evil alien force known as the Krill are, are really getting more and more powerful. And if we can't keep doing this, we're going to lose this war. If we need to send an agent to go in there to find out what's going on." And he goes, "Yes, I concur," or whatever. And then I don't want to spoil the story, but basically, you share a toast with the commander, and then you're like, your mission starts now, and then basically it fades out the screen, and then you wake up in this cryo capsule, and you find yourself out in space, and a Krill starbase has picked you up, and the Krill is what you saw in the pictures, the alien force in the series, and they wear these biosuits, shall we say, and that's what makes them stronger. And there's a lot of depth to this game in terms of the story. It does look like it's got cutesy graphics and whatever, but you've got two dimensions of this game. You've got what you see here in the videos, the exploration aspect of it. And you got obviously hit points, you got bombs or whatever, but you get random battles where you get beamed up to your ship, and the action RPG element is, when you're there, he's getting beamed up now, and then this is the actual action RPG bit. So you collect experience points by destroying these ships. So it's a shooter, it's an action RPG, but with shoot 'em up elements with it, and this is it. So you got 16 vessels to destroy or whatever. And as you see, you collect experience points, and your ship gets stronger. You collect gun data. You have different, you have different weapons, etc. As you collect the experience points to your ships as the adventure continues, and it's explained why you get automatically beamed up to your ship. I don't want to spoil the story every time you're out in the field, and the adventure is about Wrecker sort of infiltrating the Krill, and obviously the reason he got to work for the Krill is because he's basically a villain. It's a Lost in Space story, basically. And in the cryo capsule, it said, "Oh, he's a villain on Earth, extremely dangerous," and that's why they get him to turn. Obviously, he's a double agent, and there's a lot of depth. There's a love story. That's the alien chick there. That's her name's Sime, and she thinks you're on the side. There's a bit of a love story with this game as well. A bit of interspecies love for you there, Joe. I don't know how you feel about that, but as the story continues, the plot thickens and it's a lot deeper, and I don't want to spoil the story, but it's actually a very well written story, which I really like, and there's a lot of humor in this game as well.
I can see something bouncing.
Well, yeah, there are some moving parts there. There's a lot of moving elements in animation here.
I can see some alien bouncing.
Yeah, I mean, what I really find it's clearly, I was like, what is this? I mean, it's obviously rated for teenagers, but it's clearly a bit sexualized, shall we say? But because why has she got this sort of it's even made, the joke is even made there that her krill parasite that she's wearing and the outfit is like, why is it all the female species are wearing like bikinis or whatever as their outfits? And why is it that the men are all in these like big armored suits and stuff? What's that got to do with it? But then that's an age-old story of how these sort of fantasy stories play out.
How come these alien ladies have sense of decency? I mean,
I don't know, man. I mean listen, we're living in an age where some human ladies don't have a sense of decency. So I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know.
These aliens are quite modest. I mean,
Yeah, but
I'm just saying.
but yeah, I mean, it starts off with you on a leaf planet, and you go to a fire planet, and then you go and you're looking for something. You're looking at what's going to go, and you get the final level, and then whatever. I don't want to spoil the game for it, but it is definitely a unique RPG. I've never seen anything like it before. Like, who would have thought of blending a shoot 'em up with a top-down adventure action RPG elements to it? So definitely one to check out if you want to try something new, and it's a one-of-a-kind game. That's for sure, and that's what I really like about this game. So
This is a great recommendation.
yeah, it's like, who would have thought about blending these two genres? Well, Way Forward did, and Namco published it. Bandai Namco published it. I think Atari published it in Europe. So it's a good Game Boy Advance game. Again, it's quite expensive now to get if you want to buy it. Again, there's other ways of playing it, of course, but it's one you should definitely check out. There is something that I discovered with this game, though, mind you, when playing through it. There's a glitch in it when you get to the fourth world. So what happens is you see this little shoot 'em up level. Once you've destroyed all the enemies, that stage clear thing, it doesn't happen when you get to one of the worlds. It just keeps going and going. So one of the great things about emulation is you can create save states. You can't do that with the original Game Boy Advance cartridge, sadly. It's just a glitch in the game that even the developers knew, and they bloody released it, I'm guessing. It's stupid. It's really bad. But
I was hoping for another glitch.
But oh no, I'm sorry. There isn't. Those sort of glitches don't exist, I'm afraid. But this particular game, if you make the save states on the Ghost Planet level, for those of you watching when you get to the Ghost Planet level, make sure you save as much as possible, because there is an intermittent glitch where your ship just doesn't go back to the main. But that glitch aside, or that fault with the game aside, it is a really, really good game, and underrated when on reviews. Thinking, what? Why? I mean, one review I remember reading when this game came out is like one of the critics was like, "Where was this game on Super Nintendo where we wanted this game?" That's what they were saying. This game came out too many years too late, but we wanted this on Super Nintendo. That's what he was saying. And I'm thinking, that's nonsense. A great game is a great game, no matter what system you put out on there.
True.
But
and
maybe...
Also,
but
yeah, the limitations of the Game Boy Advance, it was really amazing that they actually did a game like this. And this is, I can't really think of anything that comes close to this particular game. Maybe Puga, but not. I can't really remember any JRPG RPG that is the battle system as a shoot 'em up. So quite surprising. This is a really great recommendation, and I think we might be doing some other way to be able to experience this. But for the meantime, I'll just watch the footage. Looks really interesting. And quite surprising that it's a shoot 'em up.
I love that. I think that's, like I say, that is really interesting. I'm headed to play through Game Boy Advance library after I've finished my 16-bit run, so this will definitely be on there. It looks really cool.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so we'll agree this is a good game. Yeah, it's my first game. You'll love it.
Let's play it first. But yeah,
but it's different. It's different, and it's an unsung hero, and it's different. It's different. It's got a unique selling point. It's got an allure that you've never played a game like this before. I promise you all, you've never played a game like this before, and that's why I was like, when I was playing through, when I discovered this game because I used to run a ROM site, and I was going through all the ROMs, so I used to trade ROMs with the Japanese, and they'd give me something, I'll give them something, and I thought, okay, let's give this a go, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with this game. I really loved it, and there was another game as well, which I'll mention after we finish talking about this. But this game, it's the story. Yeah, it's the story that got me into it. I'm thinking, the adventures of Captain Wrecker. Where's he? What's going to happen next? Are they going to come after him? And then there's a lot of tension now. Are the Krill going to do this with him? And it's just a really well written story. And for me, what I need when I read a book or anything, it has to have a plot. It has to have a good story. Gameplay mechanic is important, but with RPGs, it's so important to have a great story. And okay, I'm familiar with shoot 'em ups because I've played a few, so I could play the game. I understand the shoot 'em up elements, but it's straightforward. That's how you level up or whatever. But it's the story and the dialogue he has with Syme, who's the Krill girl, and obviously there's a human element there, so there's a love triangle that goes on there. So it's just interesting how that story goes on, and how high the stakes are, because you obviously you've got to save Earth from its destruction. That's how big the plot becomes in the end, like all RPGs, you could say.
Yeah.
But it's just what he has to go through. It's like all this rubbish that your character has to go through to get there, and you're on his side. You actually like the lead character, and that's what I like about that particular game.
Alrighty,
it's on the
Sir
Game Boy
Brad.
Advance, but yeah, it's on the Game Boy Advance, but the art style of it is so reminiscent of all the most of the art style on the Sega system. But it's a Game Boy game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's obviously Namco and Atari published it, but Way Forward made it, and Way Forward, I'll talk about another game, I suppose. I don't know if it
Mighty from Way Forward, Mighty Burst. I forgot the one with the Fire Women. I forget the name. I have it on the 3DS. I just forgot
Yeah.
the Mighty
But-
Switch Force.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
okay.
Mighty Switch Force, also from Way Forward.
mean-
Also a nice game anyway. Yeah.
Anything Way Forward has put out is generally good. Generally good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a Metroidvania
Can't
they made
argue with
towards,
that.
there's a Metroidvania that came out towards the end of the DS line that you might want to check out, called Aliens Infestation. Okay, and what I love about Way Forward is they were developing this game for the DS, which is going to become not so relevant because the 3DS is just about to be released in 2011. And they thought, shall we rush this game and put it out? And like, well, no, we're going to make a good game. So the 3DS comes out, and this game then gets released towards the Christmas period. And sadly, it wasn't very popular. Sega published it, and it's an amazing game. And it's probably the best 2D Aliens game I've ever played. Aliens Infestation, give that a go. I mean,
Okay.
it's a Metroidvania, so I suppose you could argue, but it doesn't have RPG elements. So just give it a go. I know it's not related to the video, but it's a Way Forward. We'll talk about Way Forward games.
You just have to say Metroidvania and very unique element. I'm gonna look it up after.
And
after
what I'll
we
say
end this.
very quickly on that Aliens Infestation game, it does have a scare factor in it. You think, what, a 2D alien game can make you a bit scared, make you jump, and like the way they've designed the aliens and where the way come out of nowhere, it's that thriller of the alien movies. It captures the atmosphere of the alien movies in a 2D game, and that's what I really loved about that. Definitely one for you to check out too, Dan, because I know you like this game. But yeah, moving on. So we're done with talking about Sigma Star Saga and Maya, and we've obviously exposed me as being some sort of crazy sci-fi geek, but I am. I'm not even ashamed of it. I love science fiction. But moving forward, this is an older game. This is going back to the Mega Drive, and this is one that I'm sure Dan knows about because he's he has the Bible of the Mega Drive etched in his mind. It's a game called The King's Bounty, The Conqueror's Quest. Okay, now this is what I call the daddy RPG, because I was an infant when I watched my father play this game, and I thought, what's the appeal in this thing? Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Heroes of Might and Magic series of RPGs. I think they were ported to the SNES. Yeah. This is the precursor to that. So this is actually seen as the first of that kind of series. Now, what this game is about is a king, and his kingdom has been attacked with all these shall we say, pirates and villains that have sort of laid siege to all the castles around the realm. And you can choose up to 4 characters, or and this is what's so amazing about this game. You can either choose to be a knight. There's 2 knights there: a paladin, a knight, a sorceress, and a barbarian, and they all have their own attributes to it. And there's a huge map, and your job is to recruit an army. There we go. And it's it's obviously an RPG adventure game, but you got tactical aspects of it. So and you recruit armies. So you recruit, like, say, elves, and we've got ogres, we've got barbarians, we've got nomads, we've got wolves. So you recruit these fantasy creatures, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses in your army. And it's your job to sort of gain experience, gain treasure, gold, gain clues as to what strengths and weaknesses these castles have, get siege weapons, attack castles, get bounties from getting these villains. So the idea is to capture the castles for the king. And when you go back, you gain wealth, and then you go on, and you gain spells, and you get all sorts of attributes in this game as you develop. So it's a role-playing game and a tactical role-playing game, and it's an adventure game as well. It's a very deep game, and it's it's an RPG not for beginners, it's an experts RPG, and this is what my father started playing, and I took an interest in what my father plays. As we all know, look, what little brother wants, what big brother wants, right? He wants to have a look at what is he doing. You know, he's like, why does he find so fascinating about this game? And you know, it's yes, okay, the soundtrack's a little bit monotonous because it's the same old battle theme over again, but then you can say the same about Final Fantasy, but yeah, and it's the same overworld theme. But you have to understand, this was 1991, and this is like an MS-DOS port, shall we say. But I really like this game because there's just so much variety in it. And every time you turn it on, you know, you try again. Now, it says days left there in the corner, so you have a set amount of time to complete this game. You know, so there's the challenge. And you got different modes, easy all the way to hard. So you have different difficulty settings, and this game has so much replay value. I think the only trade-off with this particular game was it had a very complex password system, as all Mega Drive games had that back then. And now, today, with emulation and save states, you know, it's a lot easier to play. But yeah, a truly great game for its time. You know, I don't think I've seen anything like this. It's a very unique game as well. I think the only thing that comes close to this is the Might and Magic series that followed after. But this is one that I'd certainly recommend you check out if you don't mind playing something a little old school. Any thoughts, gentlemen?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm familiar with this one, and you've summed it up very nicely for me. I think it's a good little series, the old Might and Magic Heroes of Might and Magic series, and yeah, if you're going to check that series out, I'd even start here because I remember this. This was obviously a DOS and Amiga game as well, weren't it? I think it were on that first. So my friend had it on his Amiga, I think it was.
Yeah, it's a Commodore 64. It's a Commodore 64, Amiga, DOS, Apple II, Macintosh. So
yeah,
you know, but it got eventually put on the FM Towns PC98 Windows. But if you're talking about 16-bit machine, it's the Mega Drive Genesis one you're going to play.
Well, I was going to say I actually found it harder to get into on his Amiga. That's where I was going with that because there were just a few quality of life editions that they had on the Mega Drive version.
I mean,
made it
if you look at the battle system, if you click on the elf, obviously he's got a target and he can actually shoot from a distance, ranged attacks. You see, he's got this little red target and you can shoot. With the other elements, enemies have to be right next to each other. And obviously the bands mean that's what's in control. So the blue band is you moving your character, and the cross is like saying that's it. And then the elf has got the target, so he's shooting that elf. So you just have to understand the battle mechanics. And yes, it was primitive for its time, but it's quite simple to understand once you play the game.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. So
those numbers that I see.
That's how much. So the numbers you see. So that's one elf. That's 8 elves. Yes, that's the quantity of how many elves you have. Okay.
I was thinking that's their HP or something.
Yeah.
The reason why
it is essentially, it is.
Yeah, essentially it's HP. How much HP you're buying for each amount of characters you want. So there you go.
And how come that guy is clapping? What's that? What's that all about?
Clapping. What are we talking? Oh, you talk about the clapping. All right, so see that guy there? He's the villain that you're after. So you take on contract. So this guy, they had these names as well. So there's like, they have names basically, and you have to go after him. And these are villains. So he's the contract.
That's the villain.
Him. That's the villain. So you have to go to his little castle, and then you lay siege to that castle. Obviously, underneath him, there's an icon that says siege. That's the siege weapon, but he hasn't purchased siege weapons yet. So this guy needs to. So can you see all the villains there in the pictures that you just saw? So you have to take a contract. You go to the castle. You lay siege to it. Once you've taken out the villain, you then get money for it. You get paid, and you get congratulated by the king or whatever. And you go after another villain.
So this is a bounty hunting game.
Yeah,
that's why King's Bounty.
That's the theme.
Yeah,
right.
One of the things I'll say about this as well is the later Heroes of Might and Magic games what I've played, which ain't that many of them. I think there's like 7 of them, and I think I've only played 2, and I can't remember which they were. But this the exploration and the contract element of it, I preferred this. I thought the later games, it were too watered down. It were too straightforward.
I agree with you. They simplified it. This is a very complex and deep game, to be fair. And again, like I said when I started talking about
that guy's very condescendingly clapping for your progress. Good. Okay. You're gonna come after me. Come get me, bitch. All right.
But it was, the villains do have some funny animation to it. But I mean, it is one of those games of its time that stands out as I would say, like I said, it's an expert's RPG game to play. with a lot of elements to it, a lot of depth to it. And every map, when you play a game, certain things are refigured. It's not the same game. Certain things are like a treasure chest that was in a certain location on the big world map is in a different location, for example, or it's been replaced with a dungeon when you recruit things. So it's actually really clever how they've made the game different every time you play it. So you don't get replay. It's got replay value in terms of it's a different game.
Like I say, you throw the extra difficulties in there as well, and what you've touched on, how I judge a lot of games is on the replayability. I find a lot of journalists and a lot of modern gamers tend to run it once through and that's it. Whereas games like this, once you're hooked by them, that replayability makes them a different level, doesn't it? Really, mate.
Yeah. So can you see he just went to the castle earlier and said lay siege, where he couldn't lay siege anyway if he tried because he's got no siege weapons. So he needs to buy them. Notice every week you have to pay your army, and when you don't pay them money, they start leaving you as well. And that's why he said.
So you're basically hiring mercenaries then.
That's right. So if you don't like when he picked up the treasure chest, it's always good to distribute your gold to the army because if you can't afford to pay them and you've obviously paid them,
of course,
they'll stay loyal to you and not leave you. Whereas some characters will just leave you anyway because they're obviously some of the like nomads will just go if you don't pay them, for example. Whereas some are more loyal, like pikemen are more loyal, for example. That you can recruit from the king's castle, etc. So that's an interesting army. This guy, barbarians are hard as anything. So I'm very familiar with the characters. Whereas the wolves are quite weak, mind you. So look, morale. You can see the morale in the stats that you saw there. So there's a lot of depth to this. There is a lot of depth to this particular game. All right. Again, another game that I've never seen anything else. Like I've never seen anything equivalent to this since it's been made with that much depth, especially with the 3D era games. I'm sure there are. Maybe I'm ignorant. I don't know. Tell me I'm ignorant.
No.
I think on the PC there's a few, but I think the way King's Bounty does it's quite unique. So I agree with you, mate.
I think when the graphics are as simple as this, it's more technical to play. And one of the reasons why I was so focused at the screen, I was trying to decipher how it plays like in my mind because back in the day when when I first saw the first Final Fantasies, the first Breath of Fires, I was so distant from RPGs because I could not really comprehend how I would be able to play those games because I was so used to fighting games, so used to platformers during the 90s that when I saw the RPGs in the Super Famicom area, I felt a little bit overwhelmed, or rather, I felt a little bit alienated from them. But then when I was able to play Final Fantasy Tactics, I got started into I liked getting into the stories, getting into these games more. So having that simplistic team, rather gameplay, it looks simplistic, but at the same time, I see that you need to think of how to move it, what to do. You need to consider the time. There's so many numbers that you need to calculate on it. It looks so simplistic, but in reality, it is so complicated to comprehend how to be able to play it. So looks interesting, but I think this is one of those games that I won't be able to.
It's an expert's game, and you do need the manual. You do need to read an FAQ and a manual to understand it. If you haven't got the part, you do need a manual. And like I said, it's an expert's game. It's one of those games where you had to read the manual to understand it, which is what's going to lead on to my next game as well.
It's really a Dungeons and Dragons thing. So to put it in a sense. Okay. Got it.
We got science fiction. We've gone to fantasy now.
Okay.
Until I'm a proper geek. Gone.
But since so complicated and the lack of time that we have, I think I would honestly say that I won't be touching this. So
I mean, it's the year is 2023, and my father still hasn't completed that game. He got far, and what really got him, was he had a time freeze spell because he ran out of days. If he had only just used that time freeze spell, he could have had the more time to get to the last battle, beat the last dungeon, got and won the game. And he was pulling his hair out. I believe he's completed it on easy. I'm talking about normal modes and other modes, but he was like, I said, Dad, do you not use a time screen fill? I said it to him, do you not have a time freeze fill? And he was like, yeah, I should have used it, because he was like telling me how hard it was. So it's funny. It's just funny if you're paying attention. I said, thank you, my son. And he gave me a hug saying, next time I'll use it. So it's funny how an infant can see something an adult can't. It's just a fun memory of mine, anyway.
Yeah.
A memory of mine.
So many ways to tackle such a simple looking game.
So shall we move to game number 3? Should we go to game number 3? So we're done. Okay, so this game it is an RPG because, well, it does say role-playing game when I look at it on Wikipedia, so I'm going to say it's a role-playing game. It does have that as a tagline under genres. So it's a space trading and combat simulator / and obviously it's role-playing. It's a game called Starflight. It's a Mega Drive game. Okay. Now, who's here is familiar with it? Raise your hands. Nobody.
Well, obviously,
Dan.
Obviously, the Sega guy.
Yeah.
It's a game developed by Binary Systems, and it was published by Electronic Arts for the Sega Mega Drive. This was a very expensive game when it came out. It was about £70 sterling on release. Okay, it's a big game, and my father got it on sale, and he never completed it, but I did. I'm proud to say I've beaten something my father couldn't. But it's a very complex game, just in the same vein King's Bounty was. And basically, you start off on a space station, walking around, and you have a spaceship. And your job is to mine the hell out of the solar system you're in and gain funds. And you have to explore the galaxy, pretty much, or explore the galaxy and find out what's causing these gravitational issues. So there's your ship. You can name it. You can even name your ship. You can customize it, etc. And the ship itself has armor and shields and whatever. And as you mine and gain more money, you can actually get upgrades for your ship in terms of weaponry, shields, etc. You can also train your crew as well. So you meet other races. It's like Star Trek in that regard. There you go. And you meet there's the alien ships. And you've already scanned it, so that's what it looks like. I believe this is the Thrin. So this is a lizard race that you come across. And they've also got their own territories. And now, you don't even know this if you actually read the manual and the book. Yeah, there's insectoid race, shall I say. So it's Velox, shall I say, the Velox, yeah. So again, you meet these characters and you learn from them. You talk to them. You think, okay, because you're looking after, basically the aim of the game is to discover the 3 eggs and destroy a planet in this galaxy that's causing a lot of systems to flare up, basically. And again, with this, you have, you really want to get to the end of the game. And once you've done it, you've done it. And there is a time limit in the sense that all systems will start to flare up if you don't get done quick. So basically, mine planets, make your ship strong, learn about what's going on, look at the manual, because in the manual you have a log of a ship before you known as the Intrepid and the adventures it went on, and it tells you like all the map where they visited on certain maps and what's on certain planets, etc. And you go and explore each planet, that ship, and you follow the traces of it and what's going on. Again, you've got a fuel gauge there, so once you've mined the planet for minerals, you can buy fuel, because it's called Indorium. That's the name of the fuel that powers your ship. And you have to basically the idea is you have to keep going, and you can also log planets as well that are habitable for human life as well, so you get a bonus for that. But I don't like doing that, because that means that once you've logged the planet, all the minerals are taken away from that planet. But yeah, it's just basically an exploration game, and obviously you got crew. You can have an android on your crew. You can have different races in your crew, but they all have their strengths and weaknesses, and you with money you can train them. So there's the leveling up, basically. That's the leveling up aspect of the RPG element of this game. So yeah, you have different stages to this adventure that you have to go on. It's not a game which has a rich story with loads of personality, shall we say. It's a very methodical game, but there are RPG elements in the sense that there are certain races you will meet that you'll have to communicate with, etc., etc. So yes, it's a blend of simulation and role playing.
Yes, great. I think this is a great choice.
It's an unsung game. Nobody knows about it, but it is an RPG fundamentally.
When I think of this, is exactly what I'm talking about. When people talk about RPGs. So let's compare this to something like Mass Effect. Yeah, so it's a similar thing. It's a Star Trek inspired galaxy exploration game. Now Mass Effect's fantastic. You know, all the cinematics, all the romances, drama, etc., etc. But this gives you more of a Star Trek feel.
Yeah, it is.
You know what I mean? If you're a Trekkie, and you want to explore the galaxy, Starflight is brilliant. It really is. And this is another PC port, and the PC port was really good. And the Genesis stroke Mega Drive port has a couple of bugs in it that affect it. It's to do with the weather and the way it affects the movement. It's not the same on the PC.
Okay.
But everything else is better in the Sega version.
Yeah, the Sega is the best version. That's what I was going to say. It's the best version of the game because I look at the PC for it. It's more primitive, etc.
Yes.
This is actually for me. I couldn't play any other port of this game because it's too primitive. I have to play this version.
Yeah,
this is the best version. I believe there was a sequel called Starflight 2. Never had a Mega Drive port. It was locked to PC. I've never played it, sadly. But the first Starflight game, I really do enjoy. Yeah. So, any thoughts, gentlemen? You know, looking at you two have been very quiet when I'm trying this game. What is this? What is this?
I thought all of the sprites for the ships were designed by Dr. Evil. That's the only contribution.
It's a very different game to anything.
Yeah. And
Sir Drew's words are a lot kinder than mine. I was going to say, why does the ship look like a sex toy?
It's not a sex toy. Look, you can clearly see. Okay, you can clearly see.
We were thinking the exact same thing. That's why I was meaning.
Why is this sex toy aiming aimlessly in space?
It's not a sex toy. Why do you have to? Why does it have to? Why do you? It's not even a. If you think that's a sex toy, you know.
You don't know what. You don't know what is, mate.
It's quite phallic. I mean, look at it.
Also the other ships were pink.
Okay, so you can see the cockpit at the front. I suppose the cockpit.
Cockpit.
But you know, you got the bridge. That's what it's called. And then along the bridge, you've got like that little the column there. As you know, and along that column, you got like that's where the cargo is kept, and the engineering bit's the bulk of it in the bottom bit. But
yeah, of course,
okay.
But we have cargo. Yeah, we need to unload cargo every once in a while. Yeah,
we need to unload the cargo.
Again, like you only get like 4 cargo bays. You only get like 4 cargo bays. When you mine all these minerals and stuff, and you sell it back at the star base, you can.
Our cargo has minerals too.
So yeah.
Anyway,
I believe you're getting minerals and proteins confused. Okay, minerals is one thing; it's proteins. Okay, there's a difference there. I know where you're going with this, but it's a very good game. It's not as salacious as you're making this out. All right, this is a very clean game. Okay, it's a game that
I'm just glad.
You see the planet and this ship is circling around it.
I don't think this is a game for you, Sergio, because there's not any attractive aliens here.
I'm going to say, Viraj, I'm just glad that I've not mentioned Star Control to him, because if he saw if he saw the Cyrene Penetrator, his head would explode.
I know. He's got he's got that twinkle in his eye now. He's going to Google image search it now.
Google image Cyrene Penetrator. That's one of the spaceships in Star Control, which is another excellent Mega Drive game.
No, I mean like Sir Viraj says, I mean you can no. That's fine.
Unload your cargo.
Okay.
Good lord.
You can customize the name of your ship.
Okay. Yeah, yes, you named the ship, so like it's only got certain. I wanted to call it the Enterprise, but it ran out of letters, so I just called it.
I would say what's the name, Sir? What's the name, Sir Dan?
The Cyrene Penetrator.
From Star Control.
I mean, will that name fit on the?
No, it's a type of ship from a different game, mate.
Yeah,
no, I mean, are there enough characters to name that ship that there?
Yeah,
but you have a crew of 5 in there. There's the roles there. So
I'll just name the ship Penetrate. Okay, that's okay.
But yeah, there's a lot
See,
of elements.
the
to
ship's
this, lot of
landing now.
elements.
Okay.
Landing there, and that's where your little disembark, the little rover does, and it's scanning for minerals, and that's where you pick up them. So you get like molybdenum and rhodinum and all sorts of minerals, and you can also see these wildlife and animals. You can actually sell the animals as well, so you pick up them for bioexperimentation and stuff, and you get money for it. That's really good. So it's very, very deep. This game, very deep. I enjoyed this game a lot.
Deep. Okay.
That's why it was £70. You can imagine in the 90s how much programming went into something like this. I mean, this is a big game. So there you go. You get a star map as well as a manual in the box too to play with. So it's really
although once you know how to finish it, you can finish it in about 10-15 minutes, can't you?
That's if you know whether. Yeah, that's cheating.
Yeah. We'll leave it at that.
That's cheating, though. That's if you know where everything
See,
is.
even for Joshua, that's the same thing.
It does kind of look like a dong. Fair enough. I'm not going to argue with Joshua. I'm not going to do that with Joshua, man.
I'm not gonna, Master Virtue's not going to indulge that. All right. With a response.
Call your ship Conky Dong.
I don't know. Anyway, but you can name the crew as well. So the crew, like, I'll probably next time I play, I'll probably name it after you guys in honor, innit? Hopefully, Hopefully, if I get in an alien, no, because when you get into a fight, your ship can take damage and people on the ship can get hurt as well. And that's why you have a doctor who has to heal you. But people can die on this game. It's serious. And you have to recruit new crew. But anyway, good game. I like it. It's got a depth to it. Again, another game for experts. It's an expert level game like King's Bounty for sure. It's not easy. So, but for those of you who have played Final Fantasy and all these other games which have a lot of depth, this is always a good challenge. You might want to throw yourself into a challenge like this and really get into this immersive world.
Yeah, try real gaming, chaps. Definitely.
Goodness me, it's like, how dare they condescend to us? But look, give it a go. Give it a go. Try it. If you don't like it, it's not for everyone, is it? You know what I mean? But anyway, King's Bounty. That's my third game. All right. Okay. So are we ready to move on to
the next game would be?
You guys don't really have a lot of questions with what I mean, this is a very unique game. This is the thing. I suppose there's nothing you can sort of relate to because you've never seen. But anyway, let's get to one that you can relate to. So let's go back to oh gosh. I mentioned it earlier. So let's talk about Dark Wizard for Sega CD.
Oh man.
Dark Wizard.
Dark Wizard. Okay, now this is this is what I call is it a hidden gem? Is it fair for me to use this word?
Dan? Oh yeah, definitely, mate. I think even
I love this. I mean, I love this game, even though it kicks my ass here. I love this game because it's got another game with loads of depth, an expert game as well, a hardcore game, in the same vein as Langrisser. But what I love about it is what I loved about Dark Wizard when I got into it is this little lovely animation intro. There's a little story that talks to you about what's going on and how you need to do this and that and and that's basically it. There you go, Dark Wizard. Goodness me, where do I begin with this game? There's just so much there. But there are some hot women here for you, Sir Joe. So you might like it for that reason. But you do have a depth of story. Obviously, your kingdom is under attack from an evil source. You play as a character who's one of 3 characters or whatever, but you play the prince. I like to play the prince because I'm the prince. So I'll play as him, and you have obviously characters and with obviously strengths and weaknesses, and you do have like a hexagonal grid there where you use like a tactical game, and there's a lot of depth to this game, and I think that's what makes it difficult because there's a lot of variables in the same way there's a lot of variables with Langrisser. So that's fundamentally it. There are games similar to this that I've seen on the PC Engine Mini in terms of tactical games, but they don't have RPG elements. But again, this is fundamentally it. You have an open world sort of thing after every battle or whatever. You make decisions. There's animated cutscenes. It's got a nice polish to it, and that's why I say it's actually a really good game, I would say.
Well, I'll back you up, mate. I've not played this in years. I've only played this on. Did we even get this in the UK? Because I played it on emulation.
It's on. I believe it was a Sega CD exclusive. I don't believe we got a PAL release, sadly. How I discovered this game is when I modded my Mega Drive Mini and I put this on there. I was like, oh my, this is actually a very good game. And I can understand why it never had a PAL release because it. I think thing is they judge it on sales, don't they? Is it worth a
Yeah.
PAL release? And it definitely was because. I mean, I don't want to sound any patronizing to Americans, but we're quite clever in the UK. We can play games like this, so we'd want to play this games, But I mean, maybe the Americans just didn't appreciate the game because it required, no offense, I'm not saying Americans are stupid, but I think the culture of Japanese-based tactical RPGs with depth to this level wasn't really there. I mean, I think most Americans, and shoot me down if I'm wrong, when it came to RPGs, they probably wanted something more simpler. And the SNES dominated, was quite popular in America at the time with its RPGs. And even then, I don't think RPGs were as popular as anywhere else than Japan. Japan is where 2D RPGs were really the home of it all. Whereas RPGs were still an emerging thing in Western markets. But I would think that something tactical with complex things like this would be very, very popular here in the United Kingdom. It would do well because it would have its fans. I'm saying it would also have its fans in America, but I don't think it's not as many, I would say. In Europe, I think
That's not. I mean, that's not always true. I mean, you guys
it's not
got
true.
the English version of Terra Enigma.
Yes, we did. We did get Terra Enigma. I don't know why that happened.
Baby's game, innit?
The Americans didn't get Terra Enigma
The,
for some reason.
this game kind of reminds me about Wild Arms XF for the PlayStation
Yes,
Portable because of
Right.
the
Yeah.
hexagonal.
yes, Hex.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I never played this, but looks a lot similar in that aspect. Maybe if it does get what do you say? It gets updated to newer consoles or something gets bundled and something like a mega CD collection. Maybe I'll give it a go. But yeah, maybe. So definitely right up my alley since this is an SRPG and but
question about this game. So I've seen combat wise. Do you just go close to the enemy and then attack? Then that's it. I mean, there's no cutscenes whatsoever about them attacking each other.
No, there are cutscenes, but you can switch them off. I believe you can
Oh,
switch them
that's
off.
why. Yeah, okay.
I believe there are.
Because I'm looking at the video. I'm like,
I
that's it.
remember there were.
They just
I
go close
remember
and then
there
that's
were
it.
when I played that. I remember they were, but they've
Maybe it's
switched off
just
to
they turn it off. Yeah.
to speed the game up. They've done that, but there's a
Right,
lot of
right,
options
right.
you can configure. I believe there was when I played it. So yeah, for sure. For sure. So that's Dark Wizard. Any thoughts with this one? I know Dan likes it. What you two got to say about this game? I mean, obviously you compared it to some other games, but is this something that you would like to play?
if
No, yeah,
it
I mean, oh,
I
go on,
can't
Frederick.
seem to find any of the cutscenes for the
Oh, that's a shame.
actual like what they do in Fire Emblem.
Oh
So
yeah. There is an
I'll
animated. There are
check it
animated
out.
cutscenes. Like watch the intro of this
Okay.
game. It's got an animation to it, so it's pretty cool actually. It's obviously Sega CD. They could do that. They're obviously trying something new because the Sega CD format was we could do FMV here. We could put an animation there. We could make the presentation of this game really good. So it's definitely one that you want to give a go. Yeah, one you
Yeah,
want to give a go.
definitely. Since I enjoyed Wild Arms XF in the PlayStation Portable, so something along those lines. Since adding two extra corners to tactical to SRPG, it actually adds a lot more depth to it than the regular grid base where it's only mostly the ones on the four sides. Wherein here you have to worry about the other sides, so six sides in general that would be able to do damage, or it actually adds a different layer to it versus the regular grid style in an SRPG. So having seen this, that's one thing that's actually frustrating with as we grow older, we accumulate more and more games. Our backlogs do become more and more. So even if something like this, it piques my interest, if it my interest is not that high in regards to a particular game, I would not be able to say with full confidence that I would seek it out and play it. So I'm interested in it, but at the
Yeah,
same time, maybe if I am able to uh, properly play all of the backlogs in terms of SRPG that I already own, and I still need to scratch that itch. And I don't have anything newer to play. I might go back to the older games like this. So
Mm.
yeah,
I mean, I understand
that's
that there is, you make a valid point here with accessibility to this particular game because I
yeah,
believe it only
that's
just had the Sega
another
CD.
huge
And if you don't own a
another
Mega
huge
Drive,
aspect to it.
I mean, if you don't own a Mega Drive, you have to buy a Mega Drive. Then you have to buy the bloody Mega CD, and then you have to buy the game, which is expensive as anything. But you can always just like rip a disc and play it that way on original hardware. But emulation for Sega CD isn't easy, so there's something to be said about that. But
Yeah.
I was a bit disappointed that this never got a re-release on the Genesis Mini 2. Maybe if on Sega's next mini console, this would be something they can include. I hope you're listening. But
Maybe,
anyway,
hopefully, and also
yeah.
one thing about Sega, the reason why I love the Dreamcast so much is that I didn't need anything else to add to my Dreamcast to be able to play the library of the Dreamcast. And in terms of emulation, you don't really need to do anything with your Dreamcast to be able to play the games on it. And so yeah,
okay. So
maybe
yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's just that's what it breaks my heart that the Sega CD is such an exclusive format for a special club, because you need to have the hardware to fundamentally play it, and you need to have the games to fundamentally play it. Not necessarily. I mean, you can emulation is easy if you know what you're doing, but it's complicated to emulate a Sega CD. But the emulation runs fine when you know what you're doing. But the games are not accessible to the many. It's only for people who are just crazy like me who know what they're doing. Not everybody has accessibility, and I think I just want to just touch on that point. You know, it would be wonderful if there was a way in future that they do re-release games like this that have been lost in time, that are great games. This is an unsung hero for the Sega CD because we never got it in the PAL territories. It's something I only discovered because I was adamant on having the whole Sega CD library collected and curated on a mini system that I can play on my TV, and that's only because I have a love for the brand of Sega, and this is how I discovered it. And
Sorry.
And that's just it. Sorry, I'm just going to finish, and that's just really it on that.
No, so if I were you, Drew, I'd seriously consider just getting a Mega Drive Mini and getting it modded, mate, and getting all these games we're talking about: Warsong, Beyond Oasis, Dark Wizard. Dark Wizard, sorry, I would say Dark Castle then, mate. Bloody hell.
Fantasy Star, Shining Force, Beyond Oasis. There's a lot of gold on the Mega Drive Mini in the sense that these games, if you don't buy them separate, they cost a fortune. You'd actually get, like, for a Mega Drive Mini price, you'll get your money back from the value of the games on it. And if you want to sell it on, you'll get the money back as well. It's not a big deal.
If you get it modded, mate, you can play loads of stuff on it. So
or you could contact me and I'll tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I just hope that my ISP does not track. Oh,
they won't.
I think they do. So that's one of the cons of living here in Japan is that, in terms of the emulating bits, downloading stuff, even accessing certain websites, you're actually blocked by your ISP.
So there's a loophole with that. It's called Access Viraj, and he'll talk to you, and he'll send you.
Okay.
And you're not going into any websites. All right. Okay. Moving on. Shall we move on to the fifth? Shall we move on to the fifth game in my list?
Yeah,
Goodness
definitely.
I could go on and on about talking about this game. It's a tough one. I was thinking, where do I go with this? Do I go back with the Game Boy Advance because there's one on there I wanted to talk about, and there's the Sega CD, and I think okay, it comes to mind. There's a few on there, but they've also had ports, and I wouldn't call them unsung heroes because they've been ported. But I would say this is another one, and that was a disappointment for the Sega CD. For the Mega Drive Mini that it did come out here. It's an action RPG called Popful Mail. Okay. Do you know what? You're aware of the Popful Mail?
Yes, I know this one.
Okay. All right. He knows the game I'm talking about. It's great. Out of all of them, he knows one. Okay, so it's Popful Mail.
There's actually a platformer with a female lead. Something the lead actually resembles somebody from Ray Earth. I don't know if you're familiar with that anime, but it's one of those things that when you tell me Sega CD, that's the thing that pops Popful Mail into my.
So Popful Mail was actually included on the Mega Drive Mini 2 in Japan, the Japan version of the game. Sadly, there was a conflict between Working Designs and Sega in terms of they couldn't make a deal to port not only Pot Full Mail, but also the great Luna games on the Sega CD, which have actually been ported on PlayStation. The reason I decided to mention Pot Full Mail is because this particular game is locked to the Sega CD platform, and it's, again, an unsung action. It's a platformer action RPG. It does have action RPG elements
Working
to it.
design. Okay.
Working Designs did the English translation to it, and again, it has a nice, goofy animated intro to it, and you might get attracted to Potful Mail. I think she's your kind of girl, Joe.
Joe will definitely like
Definitely
this
love
one.
her. Yeah, like this one. There was a SNES version of this game, but it's the Sega CD one you're going to play. If I'm being honest, I played both of them, and also the Sega CD ones in English. The SNES, the Super Famicom one isn't. Yes, a lovely animation, a lovely presentation in terms of the story and cutscenes. And again, one thing I love about Potful Mail, and I will say via extension, the Luna games, is that's why you like this game. Like, this is what I knew. I know. Like, I see Sir Joe's eyes lighting up. But it's about a female character called Potful Mail. She's a bounty hunter. She's on an adventure, and yeah, I mean, there's a very good voice acting Working Designs games. So Potful Mail and the Luna games. And one of the things that I found really fascinating about this game, for the time it came out, is you're playing a 2D game, but when she's talking to NPCs, shall we say, they talk. There's voicing. There's not text you're looking at, it's voice. And you are immersed in the game. And again, it is an RPG because there are leveling up. You do level up as you play. And it's an actual RPG in the same vein as the Wonder Boy series, shall we say.
They actually advertised this as an action RPG during its release.
And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of humor, a lot of tongue in cheek as well, and it's a game that anyone can play. It's a game that
tongue in cheek, my tongue, her cheek. Okay, go.
Which cheek?
Both.
The cheeks and the face.
And what's funny is like
why not?
It looks like you're killing Toad.
It does look like killing Toad, but obviously this is the intro because she was after a bounty after someone at the start, I remember, and there's the guy, whatever, and I think he gets away or something. I can't remember. It was some stupid story, but it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun, and that's the game. That's the gameplay. Now, Sega really liked this game. This was made by Falcom Nihon, I believe. So Falcom made this.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now, Sega actually said to Falcom, "Look, we want to reskin this game and call her Sister Sonic," and they said no, which is probably a good thing because they're going to try, because the character had so much spunk. They thought this chick is just as edgy as Sonic. We could like redo the sprite as a female version of Sonic, or Sonic had a sister, that would be her or whatever. But they didn't go ahead with that. So that's a very interesting fact about this game. But this is a lot of fun. I think the Japanese ROM. One thing I'll say about the Japanese ROM is her sword has a bit more reach than the American release of the game and the PAL version of the game. So yeah, a lot of fun. Any thoughts, guys? I mean, you're looking at this. I'm thinking, what are you thinking?
The reason why I'm familiar with this is because when it was, as I have said, it was advertised as an action RPG, and when I saw it, it's so reminiscent to me during that time of all the action platformers that I have played, and they add in the word RPG, and I'm like, I was like, just give it to me. And anyway, since it's a Sega CD, I was only able to dream about playing this and not really gotten into playing this. So that sucks.
I can teach you how to do things. Don't worry, I can make you play it. I'll find another way to do it. But look,
I think me and Raj we're gonna have some private time later on. Sorry, guys,
but I'll have to tell you. But look, this, to be honest, there's other. I mean, I do hope, again, like, these are, again, hidden gems or whatever out there that have, it just bothers me. Like, why didn't this game get a re-release or whatever? And then I realized because of the whole, so Victor Island is the guy, the head of Working Designs, and he wants like a king's ransom for these games now. And that's why we never got a Western release on the Mega Drive Mini 2 of this. It's only on the Mega Drive Mini 2 Japan that this was actually put on. Which is a shame, really. I mean, if you speak Japanese and you've got no problem, then that's great. Just get the Mega Drive Mini 2, and if you can read, that's fine. But yeah, and to be honest, the Mega Drive, well, the Japanese version of this game is the better one in how it plays. That's what people say anyway. But it's a very good game in terms of how the story plays out. How your character levels up, you get gold. How you can get weapons, etc., get more powerful, etc. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and it's a fun story to follow. That's all I will say on this one. And again, like I said, it's not boring like a turn. Well, I'm not saying all turn-based RPGs are boring, but you're straight into the game. You're not having to wait for an enemy to attack or anything. If you want to go straight in there and you want a bit of action, this is it. This is a great game.
So where's the RPG element in this?
So you do level up. I know it's oh, come on, man. Why did you show it to me? You do get stronger as the game goes on. It does actually. Right. You do level up. There are levels to this, but obviously they haven't pressed the pause button where it shows you that. Where it shows you your stats window. There are stats here. You do get stronger. All right, and you do get extra weapons and stuff. So yeah.
This is one that I really need to replay. I've only played it again on emulation years ago, and I don't really remember that much about it. I do remember it plays really nice. It feels really nice. But I've never played it all the way through. So this is one that I need to be getting myself on with, mate.
Mm.
This is more like more platforming. What's there are other games like this.
So you've got to think, Joe, that when this was around, mate, there were no 3D. So this is essentially if you're playing something like a modern action RPG, so like Shining Resonance Refrain, this is kind of the equivalent of it. It's just not in 3D.
Yeah, so it kind of has like Wonder Boy elements to it, if that makes sense, as I said earlier. So
I was thinking Wonder Boy.
Yeah. But yes, there is obviously fetch quests going on here and all that, but yes, it's got a lot of depth to it in terms of level. You do level up as the game goes on. That's the truth.
You do talk a lot. You do talk to a lot of NPCs though.
Yeah, you have to talk to people though, and it teaches you how to be social.
I think Garage's selections have showcased a real nice mix of easy to get into for the action people and order depth, for more expert gamers.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like I have when I started playing RPGs, I went straight to the deep end. If I'm being blunt with you, with Phantasy Star. Being the hard, like it's a hard RPG, and then when I went to play the SNES RPGs, I thought, oh, this is actually a lot fun. They're easier because they're more fun. I'm not getting my ass kicked, but they are fun games, and they will have their merits. Let's be honest, and I can understand why people like Square RPGs. But there's also a few others I was going to mention, but I thought let's stick to something that's relatively unheard of, an unsung hero, because there are some others on the advance I was going to mention, which are also unsung heroes. But no, let's just
there you go. Item status, player load, save options. Oh, okay.
So,
you need proof, Joe. You seem
my goodness me. He was probably,
I was trying to look for it.
Did you trust him, mate?
Oh, he was testing me. Joe was testing me. But no, I'm glad you tested me. You should test me. But yes, it's a very good game. And if you can get hold of it, play it anyway, go for it. In the way I see it is, look, these are games that are. I know I'm wrong to classify them as abandonware. Okay. But I don't think anyone's going to chase you for it because you can't legitimately buy this game anymore.
Yeah.
To be fair, and if you do get, I just want to talk very quickly with Rob. If there was a legitimate way to buy this game and go to a developer, then that's fair enough. Yeah. But now, if I'm going to buy this game, the money's going to go into the pocket of a scalper or someone who's trying to get money from it. And that's fair enough. If you're a collector, that's fair enough. But that you're not giving money to the original developers. It's going into someone else's pocket. I don't think it hurts to be able to just play this via emulation, this particular game, and even Dark Wizard before it. It doesn't hurt. Whereas I do believe that some of these other games have had other releases, but we'll talk about how you can play this game and how I did it when we're off this thing. But anyway, good game. So that's my 5. That's my 5. Obviously, it's a last minute thing. I did it as an ad hoc thing, but I think it's good that I've thrown out games that are quite unique. That there haven't. There's not games. There are probably games similar to obviously Potful Mail.
They are.
But with some of the others that I've mentioned, they're quite unique because I haven't seen.
They
anything
are,
like that
and
game.
all of the games that, yeah.
I was going to name some on the PlayStation and other systems, but I'm thinking I wanted to be very different from the rest of you guys. And yeah, I'm crazy, aren't I? But
I'm
anyway.
looking at
Oh,
looking at
they are different.
the entire selection. I think everybody's that's exactly what I wanted from this episode in terms of the type of games, because there were basically, when I looked at a lot of yours, obviously Virage I'm really familiar with because I'm familiar with the Sega systems, but I looked at a lot of Drew's and there were a lot there that caught my eye and I'd like to try.
Yeah, we've had an
I
interesting
never heard
one.
of. So.
What about you, Sir Joe? Are you going to do your 5?
Oh no, I'm not gonna do mine
What? Okay.
because we are already way past.
I'm going to say
Our
we're an hour and a half over.
But it's been
We are way over. We are way over time. So
All right.
we can probably continue this episode once we have Sir Joel, because what you guys mentioned, these most likely will be this will be most likely on Sir Joel's go-to list. Actually, he likes obscure games. He said that unfortunately he just couldn't get to join us, scheduling issues. So I mean, certainly you guys have a lot more games to mention. So we can probably do this, do a part 2 of this once we have Sir Joel on board. So we'll just do our. So we'll just close it at. We'll just leave it at that. We'll close the game. We'll close the game. We'll close the show with just with Sir Drew, Sir Dan, and Sir Virage's 5 plus 5 from Sir Robert's list. So that's it, guys. And let's do our shameless plug. Let's start with Sir Virage. Where can they find you?
You'll find me in Dan's Shadow in the Sega Genesis group on Facebook. That's where you'll find me. Simple as that.
All right. Thank you, Sir Viraj. And for a last minute, he just joined us. Thankfully, he was able to contribute to this episode. And Sir Dan.
Yeah, Sega Genesis group, come and see us. Me and Viraj and another chap called Steve and another chap called Rick are going to be doing a Sega Mega Masters show ourselves over the next few months. It's taking a bit of time to do because I've got to get myself familiarised with a few bits and bobs. So keep your eyeballs out for that, and yeah, have a good weekend.
All right, thank you for Sir Dan. And how about the vlogger in the room, Sir Drew? Take this opportunity to plug your channel.
And again, thank you so much for having me in the show. This is Geek Out Gaijin. You can find me both on Facebook and on YouTube at Geek Out Gaijin. And I mostly post either unboxings, video game and toy hunts here in Japan, unboxings for recent releases that are not really exclusive to Japan, but rather the Japanese versions of the newer releases. And I sometimes do unboxings for video game related figures, mostly. So that's where you'll find me, Geek Out Gaijin, both on Facebook and on YouTube.
All right, thank you for that, Sir Drew. And with me, just to promote the show, so just go to our YouTube channel, guys, Timeless Gamer PRG, if you want to see our past episodes and our audio podcast. You can also go to Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, all of the major podcast platforms out there. Just just Google Timeless Gamer, and you should find us right then and there. And I would like to thank everybody in this panel for this episode, Sir Dan, primarily for suggesting this episode, and the people there watching, listening, especially with Sir Joshua. Sir Joshua Hunt.
Oh no, Americans are stupid.
For-
Sorry, I'll take that. I look, I'm just saying when it came to some complex video games, I don't think it appealed to them. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that you're stupid. So
Josh
let me
is
just
admitting
retract
it.
that statement. Yeah, but Josh doesn't represent all Americans. He's just an
True.
individual.
No.
I'm sure there's a lot of clever Americans out there. There's a lot of stupid British people as well.
Very true.
But look, it's
And there were a lot
I'm
of
just saying,
stupid Filipinos out there too.
well,
Oh yeah,
okay.
that is one of the most truest words you could ever say.
Okay. What I will say is,
So,
when it comes to just on the subject of strategy RPGs and whatever, for the time, for any Americans listening, I don't think that was your bag, and I think Europeans are more honed to that sort of genre. It's a shame we never got Dark Wizard. That's all I'm saying. Okay, moving on.
and in regarding with role playing games, guys, I mean, like the panel mentioned earlier, action RPGs, strategy RPGs, and turn based RPGs. I mean, it would be nice if we could just do an episode just focusing on action, just focusing
Mm.
on strategy, just focusing on turn based, because there's quite a lot to filter out. Uh, uh, if if going with the subgenres for the role playing games are concerned, but hopefully we'll be able to do it. And one of the main reasons why we don't do role playing game centric episodes, because we always go over time. I mean, with me and Sardan, we were talking. We were worried that we won't be able to go over 2 hours. We won't be able to reach 2 hours. And I'm like, oh well, we're almost 4 hours now, almost double. So hey, so we're just gonna stop it now, and I'm going to hear a lot of I'm gonna be hearing a lot of flack from our producers. Oh, your role playing game episode went over time yet again for the third time this time. Alrighty, so that's it, guys, and we hope you enjoyed the show. And as always, our games and bodies might grow out of date, but our gaming experiences will forever remain. Hey,
Timeless.
timeless. See you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank
Ta-ra,
you.
boys.